It's a great question. I don't know either. Hello, welcome to the Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to 40k Thursdays. It's Ladies' Night, brought to you by Atomic Metal Automatons who just want a cuddle. Joining me today is Nick the Overlord. Nick, hi.
Hello.
Good. Below me, Tom. Still looking through all the Crusade rules.
In this pile of shit.
Page 81.
Page 81. It doesn't even list anything on page 81 in the contents. Why?
And our European overlord, and arguably one of the cutest people in all the world, is Mr. Dick van der Hoosen. Hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here. Thanks for being here. Let's start with you. How have you been? How's 9th edition, and how are you?
How have I been? I mean, terrible. There's a disease going around. Last Tuesday we had our increased lockdown declared over us by our overlords.
Oh.
So no fun will be had the coming months. So yeah, it's just work, go to bed, maybe do some hobby, and then work again. I mean, or whatever order.
Honestly, as much as COVID's horrific, and I know everyone's having a tough time with it, listen, if there was ever a time we were all getting our backlogs done, this is the time. There's no way all of us are coming out of COVID with at least not one army painted.
Oh man, I've painted so many things in the last couple of months, so that's great.
Yeah.
Finished your towel yet?
Sorry?
Have you finished your towel?
I mean, I kind of did, and then they turned out to be rubbish, so I didn't paint any of them anymore.
Are you telling me that you're only motivated by painting good things? Why? Why would you waste your time only painting the good things? Paint the rubbish
I
things?
painted one of those Forge World constructs. No, construct.
Wait a minute,
The spider thingies, the tiny ones.
Why are you painting Forge World units? You're not allowed to do that anymore.
I mean, it was fun. That's why.
Painting was fun. You'll just never use the unit. Ukraine's going to come in hot with its voting.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we'll be allowed to use Forge World, unfortunately, but I don't really want to.
We won't know. There's no way. There's no way that wins. Absolutely no way.
I hope so. But what else is new? I bought a house, I think.
Nice.
Which is coming through, so that's cool.
Oh, congratulations.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm growing up, becoming a big boy, a big dick.
A chonker.
That's what my joke was on edge. And furthermore, I'm very excited about this awesome new book, which got tangled up in my microphone.
Yeah. I see you got the. I see you got the paper version of the book as opposed to on the app. No, you can't. You have to get the book. Okay. Right?
Rob, I'll sell you my code for £30.
I'll give you mine for nothing.
Well, I don't.
I actually got the Necron one from Scary.
Oh wait.
Good work, Nick. Well done. Screw you, Scary. We got you.
That's just panic, guys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Thanks to everyone joining us live on Twitch. Serbator, I see you. Diadrin. A lot of people commenting that I look a little bit cold. I am now in the TSN studio. Finally set up the green screen, so it looks nice. Good. So nice. I'm no longer got the TSN branding. Screw those fancy lads. And then, so thanks everyone. But yeah, it is a bit cold. We're going to get a heater one day, and I'm very, very excited about that. Thanks, Tom, for subscribing. Mum, Dad, nice to see you. Born again man child. Final cookie. Ty winning. I hope you're well. Someone actually has dropped a Space Marine code bar on Saturday in the chat.
Yeah.
Free
Codex for anyone who picks up on that code.
Free Codex. I might just retweet it and get it out.
Yeah, but it's only a code. It's not a Codex, so you miss out on all the lore.
Nice. Very nice. Good job. Tom, how have you been? 40k, what have you been up to? What's been going down?
I've been really busy. Like legit, I've been really busy. And for a fact that today I go to work, finish work. While I'm still at work, I realised that the list submission deadline for Super Series is 4 p.m. I don't know why you did that, but put it at the most awkward time possible. Very good.
So that I can I can write it up before I do my show at 7 p.m. Listen.
Sorry. On the Thursday, yeah. On the Thursday. On the Thursday, where there's already a show at 7 p.m. about a different game.
Yes, I got a lot. I got a lot of shit to do. I'm a busy guy.
Fine. Okay. So stream on 2 different channels at the same time. So I did that. That was fine. I finished work at 6. I got home from work. I ate, and now I'm on the show. That's basically every day for me right now. I think yesterday was the exception. I got to play some Among Us. That was fun. But apart from that, I've done.
Oh my
That's
God.
just been busy.
Honest Wargamer Among Us when is the real question.
Yeah, we'll just do it. I'm down
we
for
should
that.
do that, absolutely. Nick, you also picked up your books, didn't you? How have you been finding reading the books? No, he's turned his microphone off now. Tom, I was asking you a question. I was like, I wonder how it was reading the books.
Wait, were you talking to me? Sorry.
Yeah. What was it
What
like
was the
reading the books?
I've read like 5 pages. Like I've read them very intensely, and I've made intense notes about those pages. As I said, I've read. Hold up, I can tell you exactly where I started. I started on page. Oh crap! What's the first page of the Necron book, which has rules in? It is page 51, and I've got all the way to page 58, so 7 pages of rules, and I've made 8 pages of notes.
Okay.
More notes than pages.
More notes than pages.
Brilliant.
So that's how the reading is going. Okay?
So we will be doing our very first stab at doing 9th edition Necron Codex. So roles for units in the Necron Codex. First time we've done it. Nick's done some amazing work. Nick, how have you been? What's been going on? Playing any 40k? How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. I haven't played any 40k this week. The last game of 40k that I played was against you last weekend, was it? No, the
Nice.
weekend before. So I've not played
Yeah.
one in ages.
Wow.
I've just been playing some Warcraft 3, smashing it on Warcraft 3. That's my gaming.
Okay. All right. That seems okay. Okay. How did you find reading the books?
I enjoyed it. I've not read any of fluff yet. I might read some of the fluff,
Okay.
but I've not read the space. I've not looked at the Space Marine one. It just seems like such a big beast, and because of all the supplements that are coming out, it's just a bit too much right now. But obviously, I love the Necrons. I think the rules are. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of different layers to them. And I think, it seems pretty good to me so far. I mean, I've enjoyed reading it because obviously the last Necron Codex was a little bit shit and disappointing. This one seems pretty decent, so I'm pretty happy with it so far. But obviously, time will tell, and playing through it.
Getting some finger and getting some bunny ears off Dick. He was just saying, maybe it was shit, but it was only shit for like 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the edition.
And it also is a book that didn't get a Psychic Awakening.
No, that's not true. We got one data slate in a Psychic Awakening.
Okay, so I apologise. Close enough.
All Psychic Awakenings are getting invalidated by the new codexes anyway. So
Yeah. So we didn't get screwed.
No, we did not. But talking about codexes, that brings us on to the news. Thank you to everyone that's watching on Patreon, by the way. Podcast guys, stay hydrated. And of course, everyone for joining us live. There is some big news in the world of codexes. We just heard minutes ago that we have got the roadmap. That's right. Games Workshop have released a roadmap, which 10 out of 10. Like, we've been asking for this, so I do nothing but applaud. Again, getting some bunny ears off Dick Van der Hoosen. Why is this not a good roadmap? They've told us which 4 codexes will be coming out in the next 2 months. That's exciting, isn't it, or not? Is it not enough of a roadmap? Is it more of like a street guide?
I mean, it's basically there just so people don't buy a codex right before their codex gets released, right?
Yeah.
So as it stands, it's fine.
It's all old information. I mean, we know the order now in which they get released, but the rest of it was all out. And now they're pretending that one of the 2 codexes isn't going to be a Dark Angel codex, but they've already told us that it is.
And also, the art on one of those books very much looks like a Dark Angels codex art.
You mean it's a Chaos Marine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, how far ahead would you want it to be for it to be a true roadmap?
10th. Up until 10th.
Up until 10th. The whole system.
Yeah, just to make sure that we are fully aware that we are not getting any Psychic Awakenings or whatever, the Gathering Storms or End Times books. Just
None of that.
If that turns up, we riot.
Okay. Okay. I'll be there with you, Tom. I'm hankering for a good riot at this stage. The smallest thing could probably incite me to that. Okay. Well, the things, Nick, you got any thoughts on this? Twitch chat?
Yeah, it's not like you say, it's not really much of a roadmap. It's like 5% of it revealed. It's like a torn off scrap of a map.
Okay. Yes, Meatballs, thanks for donating some gift subscription to the chat. That's lovely of you, you little babe.
You know, like those old atlases you used to get before sat-navs were a thing?
Yes.
Where you'd have to, like, to see the rest of this road, or to go off the east side of a map, turn to page 57 or what have you. It's like that, except you only got one page.
Well, let me read what's on it. For me, I'm at least a tiny bit excited because it's cool seeing the artwork. So there's going to be Space Wolves and Death Watch in the same month. Just in case you were not quite ramped up enough on power armor. You were like, really could do with 2 bits of power armor. So that's November. Any thoughts on either of those 2 codexes? Excited about any of them?
Yeah, now we get to see our 2 Space Marine players in the Welsh chat fight for a spot, because one of them plays Death Watch.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to watching the Rumble.
Nick, you got any hot takes on this?
I hope that Space Wolves are good, because they kind of got a little bit of a Necron treatment last time. They got a bit of a shit codex, and it was like had some errors in it that was immediately corrected.
At least the Necron Codex didn't have like a piece of A4 paper that fell out the front of the cover as soon as you bought it on day of release.
Yeah,
that was the codex.
That was the codex. Dick, you got any thoughts about the Death Watch and Space Wolves?
I mean, no.
Wow.
Let them have fun.
No one is particularly whelmed by this. I thought they'd be more whelmed.
The first 6 codexes, and 5 of them have to be power armor codexes. I'm like,
That's true. That's true.
Was it really necessary?
No, it wasn't. But one day they'll get it. But think about this.
I feel like they wanted to like rebalance Space Marines and put that to bed for a little bit, because I think they've understandably taken a lot of flack for fucking up the Space Marines. So I feel like they wanted to rush and tone that down and just put it to bed for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they needed to do something. I think also, if you think about it, one of the good things about this is a bit like when you have your dinner and your mum and dad were like, you got to eat your greens, and you like before you ate the meat. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I always ate the boring bits first before you got to the tasty bit. Like nowadays, for instance, I'd eat my broccoli and my mashed potato before I got to my vegetarian sausages, is the way I would go about it, because that's the tasty part that you would have at the end. So, if you think about it along this,
So we're powering through the broccoli at the minute.
Yeah, this is currently the broccoli section of the game. But then once that's over, it's nothing but vegetarian sausages and fucking trifle afterwards. I was just thinking the worst.
So much better. Hooray.
Yeah, like you got orc trifle, like maybe even have a cup of tea and a brandy after, which would be probably your Gene Sealer Colts would be a brandy.
Which Rob also would not consume.
But there's also Blood Angels and Death Guard, which is cool. At least for Death Guard. Again, getting some broccoli out of the way. And then Dark Angels and looks like a kind of mysterious shape thing, but maybe Tyranids, which is good.
At this point, it'll probably just be Thousand Suns or whatever.
Okay, well, like at least there's a semi roadmap. Like I think someone in the chat was saying, look, it's a bit of a roadmap. Yes, Meatballs. Like it's the most roadmappy roadmap they've ever done. So I'm going to give them an 11 out of 10. Like it's rare that they're going to get like a clap from me. So well done. Like well done. And again, just get we have to get these books at some point, and there isn't actually that much. Like what things would you want to see? Okay, question. After these 6, what's the first book you 3 would like to see? First book. Tom?
I'm not going to think now.
Okay, take your time.
I've got one. I can go. Knights.
Knights. That is interesting. That's a very polarizing book generally.
Because a lot of the changes in 9th edition specifically had a bit of this shit all over it.
Yeah.
I was one of the people saying when bits of info was coming out, I was like, don't judge it until like you see the cost, because Knights is such a swingy army anyway in terms of their points. But you need to kind of see all the info before you can make a conclusion. But the changes to CP reroll, particularly, in addition to the secondaries, have and the way that it swings with like MSU units and what have you, really swings it against knights. The smaller board helps, but I don't think it helps that much, especially when it just means that you squeeze all that terrain into a smaller area, so you can't actually move. So I'd like to see what they do with knights, and especially if you're releasing them like 7 codices in, you kind of get a barometer of what you get to test it against, to make sure that it's not going to be too much or too little for the remaining books coming out.
Okay, yeah, fair point. That, apart from the testing part, but sure. Dick, which book would you like to have come out?
I think I would go with Eldari.
Ooh.
And just to get all the...
Which one?
I mean, Craft World Eldar. Because I just can't stand all the whining from all the Craft World and Eldar players anymore.
I actually think Craft World Eldar...
It's a terrible book.
Isn't it really easy? Isn't it really easy to tune them out, though? Because they're all just watching like anime. Right. You could just be like...
Who's playing Craft Worlds on the Dutch team?
I mean, there's a number of people playing Craft Worlds.
They need to get good if they think it's a shit book.
I'll tell them again.
They want my list.
I think so, yeah.
I'm not saying Craft Worlds is like amazing, but it's not shit. There's plenty you can do there.
Well, I agree. You could probably wang them all forward, can't you? That's how you have fun, apparently, in Wargaming. You just throw everything forward. Easy. Nick, what book would you like to see?
Well, I was going to say Orcs, but then Undead Ben in the chat put Demons, and I totally agree with him. I want to see the new Demons Codex.
That had to be the worst book in 8th edition, right? Like the
no,
worst
Space
one.
Wolves are worst. Space Wolves are worst. Come on.
It was definitely up there.
Demons were bad, but they weren't as bad.
Because I feel like the Demons one, they didn't expand it that much. They kind of had, they had all 4 gods had roughly the same sets of stratagems, and they didn't.
It was 2 pages.
Yeah, 2 pages. Yeah,
half
a page
not enough stratagems.
For a god.
A lot of them were quite samey.
No, less, because there are a couple of undivided stratagems, and there was the fluff bit up above as well, like the filler text.
Yeah.
So it's not even 2 full pages.
It's really bad. It was really bad. So the chat,
I gotta say,
go on.
Psychic Awakening really saved them.
Yeah. Apparently they're really, really good now. I'm very excited to crack that.
Yeah, as soon as you can do that book.
Yeah, crack that egg open at some point. So in the chat, Necrons were the worst, says Mamdare. Sorry again, says Sisters would be good. Undead Ben obviously wants Demons because he wants to put some Bloodthirsters out there. I think that would be good. And Alendril wants some Custodies, which would be interesting. I'm going to go be really boring and say Orcs. Just super boring. But I'd like to know at least where the book sits. And because right now you're like, what do you buy? What do you paint? I had a bit of to move this story on though, and for my week, I played some 40k this week, which was fun. I played against the new Necrons, so that was a really good time. I played JJ, and I learned some really valuable lessons, I think, in that game. Specifically, I thought I'd really started to hone in on how I wanted to run the orc army that I'd been building up. And I dropped. I've been running the Mecha Jet Scrapjet, which is just absolutely rubbish. I'm just going to say that out now. I really didn't enjoy that. I dropped the WASBomb for that. But I've kind of been playing this style where what I'm going to do is on turn 2, I'm just going to deep strike a bunch of stuff. I'm going to jump some boys, and then I'm going to have run Gaz up the board. Just take some pot shots with some mech guns or whatever, and then just kind of flood the board and just hit with everything all at once. And then what happened was, very much like the game I played against Nick 2 weeks ago, I failed all my charges again. and while most of it is, what's the right word? Most of it is bad luck or whatever. If I want to go 5-0 at a tournament, or I want to win games consistently, I can't keep hoping that I'm just going to knock out these 11 out of 10 charges sort of situation. So I do have to come up with a more stable game plan, because what happened was because these were turn 2 charges where I was deep striking and charging, it meant that I wasn't getting onto the objective, so I wasn't scoring max primaries on turn 3, and I was kind of giving up an early kind of primary advantage, if that makes sense, and then trying to bring them back to turn 3, 4, 5. But if you don't get those charges, it doesn't happen. So I guess the real good lesson that I've learned there is I actually think that you could probably hold off a bit until turn 2, But turn 2, you have to be making the big waves to be getting on those secondary objectives, which I know that there's a really big push at the minute for everyone running onto objectives turn 1 and holding on, and then kind of like scaling back. But I thought I might be able to play around that a little bit and just be like, I'll be the turn 3 guy, and I don't like my strategy. I just like to say it was a terrible.
Too late.
Yeah.
Too late.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was turn 2s when I'm deep striking, and so I'm doing the charge, but I'm not getting on there, if that makes sense. So then I'm not, maybe I'd get the 15 points, maybe, turns 4 and 5, which puts me on 30, but it doesn't mean I definitely get the 45, and I'm trying to definitely get that 45, so I'm going to reapproach my orc list again, but I think one of the things that I'd like to talk about today, when we do the Necron book, is I think that's one of those really important parts, and has informed what I think you should be doing with the Necron book specifically, because it's got some real good like defensive capabilities, right, for holding on and like controlling the mid board like really, really early, and like a lot of things I think you'll hear about about Necrons is that they're a mid-range army. I've heard that a lot. I don't know if anyone else has heard that or agrees with that sentence, but That means so Dick at least agrees with it. And so I think that they're really tooled up to play this style of 40k, which my strategy didn't work for, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we effectively shook hands on those charges on turn 2. It was that simple. That was just like, cool, shake hands, let's go. Like, it's over. Because you just can't.
I mean, were you able to pull it back? Were you able to pull the score back to be reasonably close towards the end, or?
Well, no, because the bit about it is which is also one of those really interesting elements about the Necron book, is I know that one of the criticisms of the Necron book is that there's not a lot of AP generally. There is some. I'm not saying that there's none, but like, it doesn't matter when you're shooting Orc Boys. You've just got a fuck ton of shots, right? There was just a lot of shots, and the Orc Boys didn't care. You know, if they were shooting at Marines, with what was specifically shooting at me, but I was just like, cool, you've got AP1, then I've got no save. I was just taking boys off. I mean, I was saving him time. I was like, I'm a time saver because I don't need to roll save rolls, so I'm saving us both time in this situation, which is good. But because I didn't then have the output to start knocking him off objectives, which I think was one of those other things as well. So it was just a bit. I wouldn't say it was a bad matchup. I would just say I played badly, and my strategy was bad. So in the future, I think I could change it. I also won the priority for the first turn and gave him the turn because I wanted to see what would happen. And it was he just.
By the way, I love that. I'm there for that. Just giving something away just to see what'll happen, Lamau.
Well, I don't think that there's a real, like, when you're playing like practice games or you're playing games like not tournaments, the whole purpose is to learn, right? And I'm not going to learn anything from just like starting to one shot. Dude. Yeah, starting to one shot. So I was just like, no, you go first. Let's see. And then
even in tournaments, I do that.
I wouldn't do it in tournaments.
Yeah, I don't do it. I'm just like, hey, Lamau.
That's because you attend that many tournaments that you're in a luxury position. You can do it.
I only care about one. So all the other tournaments are practice about one event.
Oh, okay. All right,
so I'm just
fair point.
Pissing about. It's just like, don't even prep it and read the list pack.
Would you like in your practice games at the minute, Nick? Like, would you like knowing that you've got like a significant advantage on the first turn? You're just going to take it, or are you going to try and see like what happens playing around?
No, I try to challenge myself a bit. So when I know I have the advantage, and I'll try to make it harder on myself. But at the moment, I'm not getting that many games in, so it's basically just you bring whatever and you just try to make the best out of it. But it's not really like full on tactical gear.
Yeah, I think that's. I also wonder. This is a quick side note, sidebar, and I know we've got a really big show today, so I won't take it on too long. But it's going to be so fascinating. Like, eventually, when gaming gets back to a more normalized state, how rusty we all are. Like, how many like.
I'm going to be giga shit.
It's because I was like, we played the other day, Tom, and I was like, not even putting units on objectives. I was like, oh shit, I need to really upscale this skill level.
I'm just running some big naked boys around the board. Like, how many orcs can this guy slap with his massive bear cock?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it was many.
No, not as many as I'd like.
But he did it really, really well.
And then they got rolled. Then they got absolutely rolled by a massive big red boy.
I'm scared for now when talking about the Necrons. I'm excited to. He also got absolutely punked by some Lich Guard. I'm just going to say that, and some Wraiths.
Wraiths I like. I really like
poor
Wraiths.
Gazgul, but Gazgul got beat up. It was just rough.
By the way, if anyone's selling a Gazgul, can you let me know? Thank you.
Okay. You really want a Gazzy? Because you can't buy them individually, can you?
No, you can't.
Still not.
No. I put it in my Bartertown and everyone ignored it, and I'm very sad. But that's about it. I even left a heartfelt message. Yeah.
Yeah. Nick, I can't help but notice that Games Workshop have done you a player card. Can you just tell us what's on your player card?
They got in touch with me after last week and asked me, can we make you a player card, please? So they did.
Okay, so what are your categories?
Is that getting framed in James Workshop?
Dice jokes, 9 out of 10. Speed, 8 out of 10.
Some missed joke opportunity
9 out of 10.
there.
Yes.
Big jokes would have been way funnier.
And what's your sliding bar? Pre-game, late game?
I've got pleasantness and then saltiness.
Oh, saltiness high?
High on the salty scale.
It's not very pleasant, no.
Oh,
high on the salty scale.
You better finish your game, otherwise he's going to kick off.
If you're a child, you'll get beaten.
Yeah, if you're a child, you're going to get punched. That's it. That's a throwback to an 8th edition sort of series of jokes. If you're new, first time you've listened to us, you might want to
I love
back.
how those jokes completely overshadowed everything else that happened in that event.
Like Tom winning it.
True. Let's put that back. Yeah, there's my ego. There it is.
Yeah. I mean, Nick punched a kid. That's a bigger deal. All right. Yeah. So Allegedly. That's true.
You made it cry, didn't you?
Oh?
The person cried, yes. I did. Can confirm that.
Can confirmed. Yeah, the person. Right, okay, so Necron Codex review. Well, it's not a Codex review, it's different, because it's also not one of those Necron reviews where you just read the book out, although it might be quite handy. Dick, I'll ask you first. How did you, approach this? Were you just excited? You just read through the whole thing? Or did you, piecemeal? Were there bits that you jumped to first? How did you go through it?
Well, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big fan of other people's photographic memory. So when the Codex dropped, I had already read most of it, I think. Mm-hmm. So what I did is I basically went to the pages which weren't as well photographed, memoried
by the memory, yes,
by the memory. Yeah.
So no, basically I went to the point straight away, and I was like, okay, what was blurry? Okay, it was that other points. This is good. And then I haven't read it cover to cover still. I mean, I haven't had it for almost a week now.
It's a fat boy though, isn't it?
It is.
It's a big chunker of a book.
I mean, it's a big book, but also it has depth. The worst thing about the old Codex was you had one build, which was good, and then all the other builds were meme builds or a skewed list, which might work in a heavily metafied environment.
For what it's worth, Dick, I genuinely believe that the best build in here is also a meme build.
I mean, I agree, but that's also what
that comes about later. I think we've got the same build.
That ties into the story you just told, Rob, is that basically Necrons, you have to experience what Necrons do once, and then you know how to beat it. But if you never really went through it, then you're not surprised, because they can unleash a blistering amount of firepower when used correctly. But it's not something. It's not something that you see straight away. Basically, it's very fast. It's faster than you'd expect, and It has loads of tricks, and it has all kind of complicated rules which interact with each other, and it's only gotten worse or better for the Necron player with this new book, and it's amazing. I'm totally happy with it.
That's great.
The one point I have is I was talking to in one of the discords I'm in, and one of the people there brought up the age-old question: if LVO happened right now, what armies would be in the top 8?
Is that the Discord I was banned in? Because you're talking about the LVO. That's a yes.
I assume you're banned in all Discord.
Yeah, agreed.
They let me in the Scottish one. It's fine.
But nobody mentioned Necrons in that Discord, and I agree. But that's also because, I mean, there isn't something that stands out to me, at least immediately, like this is so cheap or so broken that it would dominate the tournament fields. So yeah, I think it's really cool, but it's not overpowered.
Okay.
And
all right.
I think that's a good spot to be there. You don't want
Yeah,
a book that you play to be. No one wants to be Yunari Eldar.
No one.
I want to be Yunari Eldar.
I would want to be a Yunari Eldar, but then, like, it would have to be a month before the WTC and then 2 months after. Then it would be good, because then I can play it all day long, and now I can't play it anyway. So yeah.
That's fair. That makes sense. Absolutely. Tom, what did you think about the book so far? Have you got like a TLDR?
So
like, how do you feel about it?
I'm enjoying it, and my TLDR is this book has the single biggest nerf in it that I've ever seen to a piece of gear across any book ever. And I don't know how that was possible, given how shit the previous Necron book was.
Okay.
But I think. Do you want to hear about it?
Yeah, go for it. Go on.
Okay. So, Dick, what was the name of that, or Nikos, what was the name of that Doomside stratagem you had last book?
Oh.
Amalgamated targeting protocols.
Right, and that has been replaced by a new Doomside stratagem. It's called Atavistic Instigation. Okay. Now I'm going to read it out for you so you can truly appreciate how much this does. So the previous stratagem, you'd pick a point, and everything was it within a certain distance took 3d3 mortal wounds on a 4+, or on a 5+ if it was a character. Mm-hmm. And what was the distance of that again?
6.
Yeah. So it's like a 12-inch diameter bubble.
Mm-hmm. No, it's 6 inches across.
Okay, cool. But either way, very good for sniping out characters and blasting like Marines apart. If you like to castle, it's really good. Atavistic Instigation, however, is not very good. So it says, use this stratagem, 1 CP, in your shooting phase when a Doom Scythe model from your army is selected to shoot. After you select the target unit for that model's heavy death ray, so you can actually shoot the heavy death ray, that's quite nice. Select one enemy unit within 3 inches of that target, and that can be the target itself if you wish. And that enemy unit has to either brace or duck for cover. Now, if the unit braces, if it's not a vehicle or a monster, it takes D3 mortal wounds. If it is a vehicle or a monster, it doesn't do anything by the looks of it, because it doesn't say anything. But if it chooses to duck for cover, then until the end of the turn, so basically, until the end of the Necron player's go, subtract 1 from the attacks characteristic of models in that unit. And you can't
fair trade. D3 mortal wounds, 1 less attack.
-1 attack. For 1 CP, you get to take 1 attack of 1 unit.
Listen, you're allowed some clangers.
I don't think it's all that bad.
Oh, it's terrible, mate. It's terrible.
I think now you don't need all 3 Doom Sides on the board to do it. Great. You get to shoot the death ray at the same time, so you're not losing shots. There's only 1 CP.
It's 1 CP to not do anything.
That D3 mortal wounds might be really important one time.
If you're playing like a combat army and you're lining it up with a charge at the same time, and that unit that you're shooting at is like a heavy combat unit, let's say, Flavor of the Month right now, Blade Guard veterans, maybe that could be worth it.
It could be, but with Necrons, when you've got like invulnerable saves, let's say you're lining up a charge of like a unit of Wraiths or something, you're not as fussed about the Blade Guard veterans, and you're also not getting very many attacks off. You're knocking.
What if you're not charging with Wraiths?
Well, then just there's your problem.
I don't agree. I don't even like those rates anyway because they're on ridiculously small bases and they're just going to fall over.
Now let's say you've got something efficient, but it works quite well against, like orcs. Let's say you've got a unit of 30 boys. If you use this, you take 30 attacks off. Well, then we just take the D3 mortal wounds.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Or you kill one orc because I'll roll a 1.
Excuse me, every one of those is valuable. That's very important that we keep them all alive.
One thing I do like about that stratagem though is that it's something that I don't think there's many rules like it in the game so far, unless anyone knows any, where there's like a reaction that your opponent can make. So it's this stratagem and your opponent gets to make a choice. There's two different paths they can take. Yeah. I quite like that as like a piece of rules design.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of that in here, actually. There's a lot of situations where you can take one or the other, and specifically when it comes to protocols, which I think you'll always be taking one or the other, because I don't think that it's necessarily a great idea to go for the standard dynasties, right, most of the time.
Oh my God, are we spending this long on this one stratagem?
No, I'm just pivoting straight to dynasties. I mean, you just ruined it, but thanks, Rob.
No, please continue. I'd like to hear about dynasties. Please continue.
No, it's fine. So
no, tell me.
No. I've been throwing off my monologue now, Rob. You go for it. Off you go. It's your problem now.
I'm so sorry.
You're meant to be a presenter, Rob. Off you go.
I was like, well, I didn't know how to get us off this stratagem. That's all I wanted.
I literally just mentioned the word dynasties.
Nicholas, did you have any cool strats for dynasties? Strats. I mean, what was it?
Some stats. Well, I have prepared some stats.
Yeah, we've got some prep, haven't we, to go through?
Who's casually removing for Nikos' stats?
No, don't worry. I've done a scene. Don't worry about it. But can I just say about my drama reading through the book? Because I'd like to. I think I'm quite a tactile learner, and sometimes when I read, I don't know what it is. Maybe I don't have a good enough command of the game. I just want to be honest with everyone out there, so that anyone who might be feeling that they are in the same boat. But I just felt overwhelmed. I've spent most of 2 days trying my hardest to read, and I would read it, and then I'd be it's just not going in. I don't know if it's
we haven't even got the space. We haven't even got to the Space Marines one yet.
I know.
Have your glasses on.
Yeah, I understood the words. I don't know if it's Ronin oppression, won't absorb the information, but it just felt like a lot. And I think the information in the book is really well laid out, which is quite nice. But it just feels it's just a lot of information. And like you said, Dick, a lot of it synergizes together quite nicely, which is quite good. Yeah. But then that means you're jumping around because you're so +1 attack. So you go find out what that unit does, and you're oh fuck. And you're well, how many points is that unit? And then you're going somewhere else, and it's just do you know what I mean? Trying to build an idea of how the army plays has felt it's felt like a lot, if I'm honest with you, and I felt quite overwhelmed. So I'm thinking next time I might just do it via a Skype call or a phone call and try and generate the information that way. But do you know what I mean? A lot of it is tied to there's just a lot of it's 18 inches, strength 4, some fucking shots, and you're sweet. So you go to the points, and it's which one of those is going to be good? Does that make sense? And anyway. It's not
I feel like you struggle to read and understand this all because you've never played Necrons. I find it easier because I was reading this stuff and I kind of know mostly what the units do and I could theorize it in my mind. And I mean, if you've not got any Necron experience playing with or against them that much, then that might be why you find it difficult.
Yeah, no,
I agree, but at the same time, I feel like the builds that were good. I mean, decent with the last book aren't good now. I think that the focus is on a lot of the different units now.
Yeah, well, Alan Droll in chat says Rob is talking about me looking at Tomb Blades, but I actually quite liked Tomb Blades. And apparently, everyone's no, they're shit. And I'm I actually quite liked them when
Nobody
I read
said
them.
They were shit.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I liked him. Whereas Nick's favourite, the Triax Stalker, I'm no, that's shit now, in my opinion.
So good.
But
it's about to stay the same. It's got a little bit better, but
okay. Well, should we go through the? Anyway, that's kind of my top-down review. I think the information though was presented really, really well. I'd just like to say that. I just think it's really nice. And I think also the other thing about this book, very much like Dick said there, is nothing really jumps out, which is actually a huge positive. Because then you're oh, actually, I've got to read it all. I've got to gather all that information. And so, and I think that's actually the sign of a good book. I'm like, fuck, I might have to learn all of this.
Just to add to that, when you deprioritize troops as a general rule, what ends up happening is you have to look at a myriad of different units because now you can't actually spam anything. So let's say I don't really want to run many troops, which is actually encouraged in 9th edition because I don't need to take loads of troops to unlock benefits, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, now I end up having to like fill my 2,000 points with like different units. And let's say I want 3 squads of Wraiths in there, for example, that's 525 points. That's just over a quarter. So now I have to find like 3 or 4 of a unit, then you have the characters in, to fill out the army. So you are getting more variety across your army list rather than it just being like, I'm going to put 800 points of brick troops and I'm going to add this bit and then I'm going to walk at you.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, like, this is the thing about it. I think it's going to take a lot to unlock. And I did also watch, like, some other YouTubers as well, and their kind of takes. And I can't, like, having just talked about my strategy with my orcs being so terrible, the ability to just move up when we get to it, like, into the middle of the board on turn 1, feels like an amazing ability, obviously.
Yeah,
and knowing that the army is this mid-range powerhouse, the first place you want to go is in the mid-range. So I'd also like to qualify that I think, this is my thoughts, I don't know about you guys, Dick, because obviously you've got different terrain there, maybe, because the Alliance Open has got a terrain pack as well, right? I think?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not sure, like, exactly on that terrain pack, and I'd love to go look at it, actually. But one of the things for me is that I think that the reason I don't like the Triarch Stalker, the one that gives +1 to hit for everything, is that now, in all of my games of 40k, not everything can see one thing, pretty much. Like, you know, that, oh no, reroll 1, sorry, it doesn't give +1 to hit, it gives reroll 1, sorry, when you target it. And so, like, I actually think that, I thought the utility of that is really rubbish now, because the game, you can't bring everything to bear. But I think Necrons, more than any other army, can just kind of flood that midfield, and then they've got as many opportunities to shoot stuff. Anyway, that's the only real clever thing that I thought up, so I'm going to be quiet now for 2 hours.
I kind of agree. And what else is also interesting is that there's a dichotomy within the army, is that in order to play missions well, you want to have multiple small units at the moment. But the rules in this book make you want to take big units, and that's very weird.
Yeah.
I'm always
you want to
in
max
this position where I want to have big units of Immortals or Warriors, but at the same time, if I'm gonna have one of those units do actions, then I'm basically wasting it for a turn.
Yes.
Unless you take a certain
It's similar to Grey Knights.
Well, but also, when we get to it, there's also, like, the thing that I found playing JJ the other day, he had just, like, a ton of support characters. So he was able to just, like, he just, like, not not dozens, but he was just like, I've got this fucking Scorpet Lord here, and this Lord here, and this other fella, and I was just like, well, against playing Orcs, you got Ghazi, and then you got, like, a weird boy who's, like, terrified. Yeah, he's just like, don't come near me, I'll fall over, like, somewhere, and then a big mech. Whereas you don't, like, you don't have the War Boss and Bike anymore. But, like, you've got, like, some tanky, beat 'em, like, dudes. Anyway, let's go through let's start top down, shall we? Because Nick has done. There we go, everyone. Look at that. Well done, Nick. So, Nick, do you want to take us through your Codex overview?
Okay, so basically what I did, I went through all the rules, like the protocols, dynasties, blah, 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 and I basically looked at each rule and said, what does that encourage? Is that a buff? Is that encouraging melee? Is it encouraging shooting? Is it resilience-based, etc.? And tried to quantify all the rules and just to give a bit of an overview. They've got 50 units in total, and the majority is HQ units. And also the elite slots there's a lot of elite slots in this book. So there's 6 named dynasties, or you can pick 2 custom traits out of 12. 50% of the dynasty codes mainly encourage damage, rules that encourage better damage. The custom traits are quite varied, but 25% of them focusing on resilience. There's 1 custom trait, that Vassal Kingdom, that allows you to take a named dynasty code, but also take an additional rule, Circumstance of Awakening, which is quite interesting. The Circumstance of Awakening,
isn't that like extra ObSec?
No, that's you just get another rule, and there's various different buffs in there. So some of them are shooting buffs, some of them melee buffs. So basically, you either have a named dynasty where you get the code and you get a specific strat and relic for that dynasty, or you take a vassal kingdom where you get that dynastic code, but then in addition, you get the circumstance of awakening, but you do not get the relic and the stratagem.
Is that in addition?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think they specifically say you don't. It's basically just unless you selected the Vassal Kingdom dynastic code, you can then also select one additional code from the Circumstances of Awakening list opposite. So if you take the Vassal Kingdom, it's basically, oh, I've got like weirdly painted official dynasties, I think.
Okay.
Otherwise, they would be epic and very good. Unfortunately, no. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, I read it as you get, if you pick the Vassal Kingdom one, you get their dynastic trait and then also a Circumstance of Awakening.
No, they specifically call it out.
Oh, did they?
What's that, sorry?
They did. I just read it to you. It says, like page 54, unless you selected the Vassal Kingdom dynastic code, the one you just mentioned, you can then also select one additional code from the Circumstance of Awakening list opposite. So if you pick the Vassal Kingdom, you cannot pick one of the Circumstances of Awakening.
Okay. So you can only all right. So
the purpose of that is essentially to allow you to paint your army a different color, but still use it as if it was one of those dynasties.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Sweet.
Okay, so you can't pick a Circumstance of Awakening if you pick the Vassal Kingdom.
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, ignore those last paragraphs. Anyway, so command protocols. You get basically one buff per turn. There's 6 of them, and each of them is it 6 or 5?
Six.
There's 6.
Yeah.
So each of them gives like a different buff. So one is defense, one's movement based, one's shooting based, one's melee based. One makes Necrons better, reanimation and living metal, and then one makes auras and shooting better. And then I had a look at the units, and the roles are mostly damage and support. That's obviously
so this would be a good time.
Opinion.
Yeah, this would be a good time for everyone who's not gone through like our 40k Codex reviews before. So one of the things that we do with the Codex is we break them up into like different roles that you usually play an army in. I think it's like, well, we think it's more productive than necessarily just reading through the rules, or maybe even just focusing on one unit and this unit is good, because like the different roles that you take, and some units change based on which dynasty they're in, for instance, or what even support characters you have around. But in some cases, like we have different roles. So you've got aggressive blocking, which a good example of aggressive blocking is something like Storm Boys, when you take 30 of them, you wang them up the board to try and get in people's faces early doors. Defensive blocking, which is like Plague Bearers, is another good example of 30 boys that will just go hold an objective. I think a better example of those in some cases maybe is like blocks of warriors, maybe, because they're stood on objectives but they're firing off the objectives as well. So they're defensively blocking out and holding objectives, but they're also screening and doing a bunch of other stuff. You've got damage-based units, so units that are there really to knock units out. And you've got character suppression, so stuff that will sniper stuff. You've got support units, which I think is a heavy selection of units in the Necron book. And then you've got units that produce secondaries as well. There's also like counter-punching role, which is quite interesting, I thought. But yeah. Those are the kind of like key units that you would get, and then ones that are trying to choose secondaries. So there's a bunch of roles that you have in the army, or that you try and create basically in the army, because you definitely have to go onto objectives, and you definitely have to blow up your opponent's stuff. But sometimes some armies don't ever try and even blow anything up, right? Like I'm just going to stand on the things. Although with the
sometimes you don't even need to.
Nurgle blobs.
Yeah. Although now with the secondaries that you have in effect, I would argue that like there is a certain amount of damage you still have to do. Although you could just do like engage on all fronts and do a bunch of like actual what are they called, actions, and never do it at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got the next screen up for you, Nick.
Okay, so the Codex has 40 stratagems. Wow. Most of them are focused on buffing your own units.
That's like 4 demons books.
Yeah, exactly.
So many.
4 demons books worth of stratagems. Pretty good.
Yeah.
So half of them are focusing on buffing your units, quarter is focusing on putting out mortal wounds, and a quarter is focusing on sort of movement shenanigans, whether that be heroic intervention or deep striking or a redeploy kind of style. And I think this will probably be the standard for this edition. I don't know if you guys agree, but they've got like a buy 1 warlord trait and 1 relic strat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So you still get your 1 base, right?
You still get your one warlord and 1 relic, but you can buy 1 each extra free. And I think that'll probably be standard, I'd imagine, for every codex. I feel that'd be fair for everyone.
And it
Rather
costs
than
a
some
CP
people be able to
each.
buy loads.
CP,
Yeah.
1 CP for an extra warlord trait and 1 CP for an extra relic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And so a new thing, so similar to Space Marines getting their like commanders upgrades, Necrons have Arcana that you can buy for the Cryptex. And I think they've got about 12 overall. So a quarter of them are focusing on putting out mortal wounds, 25% buffing your own units, and 25% debuffing the enemy. And similarly, looking at warlord traits, the main focus of warlord traits is focus on melee buffs. So and 25 focusing on resilient buffs.
Gotta say that is the weakest part of the book, in my opinion.
What, the warlord traits?
Yeah, no. The warlord traits. You got brilliant support characters. They do quite a bit for your army, and then you got all your warlord traits are like, +1 attack, reroll wounds, do mortal wounds. It's like, I mean, I'm never gonna do the mortal wounds on 6s for my 4 attack guy.
No. I mean, the Scorpec Lord, he's pretty decent. Would you not do it on him?
Yeah, but he can't be a warlord if you want to have protocols, which you want to have.
Oh yes, because you need to have a noble.
Yeah, you do. A question for you guys though, like, were there any armies in 8th edition? I guess 9th edition now, but like that really centered around those warlord traits.
I mean, centered maybe is a big word, but you had a lot of armies that have warlord traits, which enhance your overall army and not just the model.
Force multiplier.
Yeah. So reposition your units. Give extra AP on 6s. I don't know. CP regeneration, even that is good, and does something for your army. All that sort of thing. It's basically the same thing as with relics. Relics that either do a lot of damage, and it could be good, or you have relics that enhance your entire army. And generally, the better pick is to pick the latter.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the buffs are coming from the Necron characters already have quite a lot of buffs anyway, like built in. So like the overlords give +1 to hit, the lords give reroll 1s to hit, the destroyer lords I think give reroll 1s to wound to destroyers, and then more army-wide buffs I think come from the Cryptex as well, the 4 different types, and then also their Arcana as well that you can buy in addition. So I think they've got quite a lot of buffs anyway. And yes, I do think that there's not much force multiplier potential in the warlord traits, but I think it's more. I think it's good that the resilience ones are most important for me.
Well, I think it's also interesting that maybe you see a trend of, maybe you'll see a trend where warlord traits aren't as big a deal. You know, maybe the warlords specifically aren't going to be. You know, if you look at the Silent King and how many buffs that guy produces, like he is a buff piece. So like maybe they like instead of just there being a flat aura around them, they're trying to be a bit more clever with what they're trying to put in as abilities and support roles. And so they don't want to like over egg it with warlord trait stuff, or maybe they just wrote some bad ones. We'll see as more codexes come out, and there is a lot coming out, right? What else is there?
Well, so the relic section, I looked at the relic section, and most of them again are focusing on damage. They're like either weapons or like something that does mortal wounds. And then the next highest majority of them were focusing on resilience buffs, either like the new fancy Resorb or something that just makes your character a bit more tanky.
Okay, yeah, and then go on after you.
Yeah, and then the last bit I looked at was just the Catan powers. That's your main source of mortal wounds in the book. There are some relics and, like Dick said, like Warlord Traits that do some mortal wounds, but the main mortal wound output of the book is going to be the Catan powers. There's quite a varied bunch of powers that are quite good against different unit types. None I thought that were specifically good at character suppression, like targeting characters, because none of them can target characters. Is there? Which one?
They can almost all target characters.
Well, I think the powerful thing about the Catan powers specifically is that they're just their own thing. You know, you can't unbind them. You don't get protection against mortal wounds from them like you would from any other psychic power. Like, you can't stop them. You don't have any like janky stratagems to shut them down. They're just doing the mortal wounds, which is pretty nuts, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And the point with the Catan powers is that most of them are short ranged, and they have a specific role. You know, so there's one which hampers big enemy units near you. There's one which does just every one within 9 inches. It gives mortal wounds on a 4-up. All kinds of that kind of stuff. But there are a couple of let's say targeted powers which don't have any requirements for targeting, which means you can pick a character. One of my favorite is Time's Arrow. It's exactly the same one as it was earlier in the last book, but you just roll a dice, and if you roll over the amount of wounds on a character, it just dies. There's nothing you can do because it doesn't take any wounds. You can't take any feel no pains against it. So one of my friends in the chat, Amsterdam Battle Brothers, he plays Nurgle, and he got those poop flamer thingies. They're the bane of everyone's existence.
The Death Guard guy.
Yeah,
okay.
But if you just roll a 5 on that dice for that power, he just dies, and there's nothing he can do about it. It's just poof.
So just to add to the Catan powers, we actually had one of our Welsh guys. He was testing a list based around Catan powers until he realised it was illegal. Where he had the free vaults and a Silent King. Now, obviously, that list is illegal because you can't actually fit that in, because you can only take 1 Catan shard unit per detachment you have. And so when you're doing that, you physically can't get the Silent King in. If you were just to take 3 vaults, then you just have 3 vaults. But he was just running through people. So the problem isn't necessarily even the Catan powers. The Catan power is very good. It's just getting enough of them in your list to enable them, right? One of the Catan I do really like, though, is the Nightbreaker. I think the Nightbreaker is very, very strong, especially when you consider the fact that he's got a stratagem that allows him to ignore invulnerable saving in melee.
And his Catan power is pretty good as well.
Yeah, man.
So it's 3-4 pluses to do D3 mortal wounds within 9 inches. That's pretty good.
First thing when I started going straight to them, and I was just like, bro, I'm just going to run a bunch of Catan shards, like in some patrols. Well, 3, like obviously, and then just have a great time. And I think that would be fun. Like, honestly, I think as much as that might be a meme, I might be good. I just want to say big shout out to Orcs15 in the chat for donating 500 bits to the show. That's really lovely of you. That's great. Thanks for doing that. That's really, really nice. And also big shout out to Dataliz. Dataliz asks, because there are a couple of examples of this in the book, how do you guys feel about abilities that just slay models? You don't really get a choice. You don't get any of your protections that maybe you've paid for. Do you feel like it will create a negative play experience, or just something you're going to have to deal with?
Yeah, it's epic. It's wonderful.
Okay. Online podcast. Yep, there it is.
Whoa, okay. Strong answers there, boys. Calm down.
I'm just here with some very spicy takes on some very specific topics, so my overall opinion is just like, meh.
Okay, so you're not bothered. Dick, I'm sure you want to just remove people's models without them getting a roll.
No, I want to do the opposite.
I don't think there'll be particularly many negative play experiences from output necessarily, because I think there's ways to play around it. I think if anyone's going to get salty about the Necrons, it would probably be when someone reanimates an entire unit and brings it back.
Oh, listen! When I played JJ the other day, I red rolled it into 10 warriors, yeah, and I was like, fucking get ready, red roll it in. I only killed like 4. Like I killed 5 maybe. I messed it up, and then he like reanimated 4, and then he reanimated 4 on around the red roller, so I couldn't get my boys out the next turn. It was terrible. I really did like it.
You can do so much janky shit with the new
so much janky shit with the resin.
Great.
Sorry, what were you saying, Tom?
No, I was just saying, I feel like the negative play experience will be based upon what I plan on doing with the Necrons when I start to actually get to grips with the book and play some games with it. Because I'm trying to learn to play every faction properly now.
Okay.
Which is why I'm taking a lot of time learning this. And I'm going to do some very annoying shit. Let's put it that way.
Like, I don't know if the Necron reanimation now works the way reanimation worked before, but it doesn't at all. But it reminds me so much of Age of Sigmar, like lining out when you res stuff from reanimation, which you used to do to like control the board space, move stuff out, block charges you weren't expecting. It was just fucking awful. I love the idea that you pop your head out, a unit shoots a couple of your warriors, let's say, some die, and then you reanimate the other ones behind the line of sight blockade. So now they're just like lol, or you just move them closer, or like there's some you can do some like that eventually got retconned in Age of Sigmar so that it could only be ever within 3 inches of the starting unit. Although Legion of Nagash still doesn't have that. But like when I saw JJ doing it, who's played a lot of Age of Sigmar anyway, I was like, this is shit. Like it was cool. Like I loved it. I was like, stop doing this to me. I don't like it. But you can do some real fun stuff with it.
It's a funky book.
This is one of the hidden gems of the book. You know, everybody is looking at it and it's like, okay, well, reanimation. Okay, it's pretty strong. It's pretty cool. But this is the trick. You know, if you master this, then you're going to master the army. This is going to be epic.
I absolutely agree with that.
I think I tweeted out something like that last week, actually, or a week before, something like that. There was a lot of jank that you can do with reanimation protocols.
So much.
Twitter,
yeah. Actually, 853 people do. Thank you.
Don't follow him.
Yeah. I just went onto my Twitter to find the tweet.
But yeah, you could do some really janky stuff with it, and I agree with you, Dick. I think that's actually one of the highlights, which is we'll get onto the actual army later. Nick, next I've got the Dynastic Code effects screen up.
The rest is just a bunch of charts with some data.
Data.
Codex.
Oh my god, data.
Dynastic codes.
Oh, so much data. So this is the Dynastic Code effect and what it affects.
Yeah, so the 6 named ones. One of them is the Nihilic one, which gives the entire army objective secured. So I felt that that it promotes you to play the objectives better. One of them's about movement, which I think is the one where you can translocate through terrain. So that's obviously making your movement better, which again maybe will help you play the objectives better anyway. And then Novok makes your combat better because it boosts your charge and melee prowess when you're actually in there. Gives you better AP when you charge or heroically intervene. And the rest of them all damage, like Mefric gives you extra AP and range on your weapons. Sautek gives you a reroll on the wound and a mortal wound save. And then the newest one, which I can't say, Cesarican.
Isn't it?
I pronounced it Cesarican, and then
Cesarican. Yeah. It's like Caesarian. You think Caesarian, and you just think, of like the Khan doing it. So just think of Genghis Khan doing a Caesarian. Caesarican.
Yeah. Sorry, that's the one that gives you the reroll 1 to wound 1, not Sautek. So Sautek gives you rapid fire at 18.
Mm-hmm. So then the next one you broke down the custom dynasty trait effect as well, in that they seem pretty spread out.
So most of them give like a bit of a resilience buff. A couple of them give a hit buff, but the rest sort of give you different things. So one's making you wounded better, one's shooting better, and one gives you ObSec.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's taking me a while to change images as quick. A big thank you to Orcs15 in the chat. He's just donated another 500 bits. Woohoo! We're in bits heaven. Okay, next one. We have got the protocols as we got the breakdown. So this is the first time. So there are 6 protocols. You choose 5. They normally have 2 effects. But if you're a particular dynasty, each dynasty is kind of hardwired to one of the protocols, and you get both effects if they trigger at your time. There's some in here, but you've broken down what they really do. So in this graphic here,
well, I've boiled it down to 2 words. Basically, yeah. So basically, there's a resilience, movement, shooting, melee, Necron rules, and then aura and shooting buff. And you get to. What's cool about those is you get to pick one. You get to pick one per phase, 1 per turn, and order it, and then reveal them secretly. So it's a cool little secret mini game that you get to play with your opponent.
Yeah. It is fun. It is fun. But having watched one person do it, Nick and Dick, are you in any way stressed about bookkeeping on the tabletop with this?
I think initially yes, but I think long term, I'm sure the more you play the army, the quicker and easier it'll get to take that decision. And I feel like you'll design an army to play them in a certain order.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll get into a routine with it and maybe swap it up a little bit, but majority of the time I think if you're playing a list at a tournament, you'll probably design it to do it in a certain order.
Yeah, I agree. Also, whilst I'm not usually an advocate for it, Games Workshop made these cards and they actually have them on, and it's genuinely helpful. Because you just put them in order, you lay them on the back and just...
Yeah, but Dick, we're Frugal Hammer here. We'll just make our own cards.
you could.
I would prefer if you actually wrote them on your arm, and then as the game got more serious, you rolled up your sleeve.
I'm getting an atavistic instigation tattoo down my left arm.
Yeah, that
so
works.
whenever I'm rolling dice, I could just read the stratagem, but
that works.
So hard.
Or I'd like them on different T-shirts, and you just take another T-shirt off with like another T-shirt underneath.
5 T-shirts on.
So when you go to sneeze, cough,
That's gonna
and then
be
you read
hilarious. No,
Okay.
but what's your take on these protocols, Nick? Are they worth it? Are you gonna ensure that all of your units are going to be within 6 inches of all your of your characters every turn?
I don't think I'll ensure all of my units are within, but I will definitely have my main units. So the first list that I'm going to try is like big blobs of warriors. So I'll definitely make sure my warriors are in range. But like if I've got some tomb blades that are just flanking or screening out to our scarabs, I'm not necessarily going to make sure that everything is within 6 of a character. I mean, I don't think they're huge buffs, but they're nice little buffs. I don't think they're game breaking or I don't think you need to stress too much about them.
I think again, like everything else in this book, it's like it's a weight of rules added on top of each other, which I think it's a very it's a very finesse style book where if you get into the if you turn up with your battle plan, I think the more you play this army, the better you'll get. It's got like a really it's got a lot of skill to it, which is
Depends on
nice.
what you're doing, I think.
Yeah, it depends specifically how you play it.
How your plans to win.
Yeah, but I honestly think that there's a lot of additional rules on top, which actually you'll develop more over time. Having looked at it, and I think the protocols will actually be a key part of that. And I also think it's interesting that these protocols are in here. That maybe each book is going to get some sort. Obviously, Marines have got what they go through as well. But if you get these kind of turn-based buffs for the rest of the books, I'd be very excited to see. But that's a side note. I actually think the protocols are rad. Personally,
I think it's more an experience thing with specific lists, right?
Huh?
I think it's more of an experience thing with specific lists, right? I like the protocols as rules. I think they're cool, but I don't think you ever want to be doubling up on them to the point where it's worth ever taking one of the original dynasties, right? I could take an original dynasty and get a double up on one of these protocols when I'm looking at the protocols and I'm thinking, in what scenario will I ever want both of these things at the same time? That's not to say that neither of them have value or one of them has value, the other one doesn't. I just can't see a scenario where I'd be using both of them at the same time or in a position where I'd ever need to. Much less common enough for me to take this.
No, I disagree with that.
Because which one do you think is good?
I can imagine many times where I want it to be perfectly lined up. My big unit of Wraiths and my big unit of Scarabs is going to charge something, and then it's going to be in the the protocol of the Hungry Void, which means that they'll all get extra AP on the charge and extra attack.
Sure.
And whatnot.
Okay. So you take that.
Just so
is
many
it worth
things
then
you have
taking
to
that
line up.
dynasty over taking ObSec on your entire army in 6-inch move at the start of the game?
No, but you can do both.
You can do both though, because there's a
You can do
strategy.
both. Sure, you can.
I can think of a circumstance.
Yeah.
So I want to
When
take
you're having fun.
So I want to take the Nihilic dynasty because that also unlocks a relic or warlord trait. I can't remember which one for your Catacomb Command Barge, which gives him a +1 save and a 6 at DPR, and that just makes him objective secured and super tanky.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I'd be taking one of the named dynasties.
And while we're going non-optimization, but decent lists regardless, we can also go with flayed ones, where you can give them a stratagem to give them +1 strength, and you can also double fight with them because a +1 strength lasts a phase.
Yep.
Well, so one of the things
But
I
don't
like
think
about
it's
it,
optimal.
one of the things I like is if you get caught out wanting one of the, because I think you can, in for one turn a stratagem, you can replace them, can't you? You can change protocol, or maybe that's just with the Silent King. Like that can just do that.
Probably just a Silent King, I think.
Just a Silent King.
Also,
but I like
yeah, so
like that because it's
yeah.
that like, oh, I need this other thing right now.
It's also, this just enhances my earlier point, is that there's so much to choose from now. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I was looking at the relic Nick mentioned. I was like, I've never heard of this relic. I've played this dynasty, and I mean, it's a good relic. So why haven't I picked it? And I was like, oh wait, it's a relic, and you want to have the Veil of Darkness on that guy, or you want to have the Orb of Eternity on that guy, which is amazing. And I just haven't looked past those other two because those were so good, and this one's good as well.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
That's good. That's good that there's lots of,
It
but
is.
there's not like a single one option, right? Like,
No, exactly.
Okay, next screen that I've got up is the Necron unit types.
So that was just a breakdown of, like, you know, what percentage of the, because they've got very few troops, which is quite interesting. They've got like 2 troop options, but the book's overloaded with HQs and elite units.
Yes, yeah, they're very heavy. Some of these graphs will be really interesting to break down some of the other books as well, specifically. But yeah, a lot of elites and a lot of HQs. I think that's the thing that threw me when I was reading it. I was just like, it's a lot of buffs to remember, like a lot of things, especially as like it's all pretty much the same. Well, not quite, but you know, a bit. But they're quite weak. I mean, I suppose every book's, apart from Marines, weak on the troops. It's like not tons of troops, I guess. There's 2 troop units? 3?
Yeah, I was just thinking that Eldar, they've only got 3. Orcs have only got a couple. Yeah, so I guess that is pretty normal, to be fair.
Yeah. Okay. All right, sweet. One of the things just quickly to talk about with the protocols again is that obviously they only buff out from your lords, and they only affect your core. Is that right? Or they only buff out from your characters?
So now your lord had better be chasing those scarabs and race up the board.
No, the protocols come from every character, but you have to have a noble to unlock them.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. Yes. So your characters, like, again, it's nice that there's just referencing how many characters you have. You've at least got lots of options in the characters that you want to take that are going to put those buffs out. If you go for buffing all your core units, which I'm assuming you're going to do, like, we'll see when lists like start being put together, right? But now, based on your opinion, Nick, you've changed you've done what you think the unit roles are going to be. Yeah,
so obviously this is just my subjective opinion. I went through each unit and just assigned them a role quickly. Mm-hmm. So obviously they've got a lot of characters, so they're going to have a lot of support units. So most of the book is support units, and a lot of the units are just geared towards damage. You know, they're not. There's a few, I think, defensive and aggressive blocking units, like I would say Wraiths are possibly like an aggressive blocking unit, and like Warriors are an example of a defensive blocking unit. But a lot of the units, I feel like their main purpose and role in life is to do damage to your opponent, like an Annihilation Barge. It's mostly floating around trying to shoot things, or the Praetorians flying around trying to chop things to bits. Dick, you've probably got way more experience playing Necrons than me. Would you agree with a lot of their book is damage, role, focus, and support, or do you think differently?
I think I disagree, but that's mainly because the state of the game is all about moving and claiming objectives, and dealing damage just isn't what it used to be, basically. So,
can I step in just very quickly?
Yeah.
I agree with both of you. I think Nikos is right in that most of the units want to do certain things, but I think Dick is right in that those aren't necessarily the things you want to be doing.
Yeah. I think that's a clear. I don't know the English word again, but
we understand the point.
Foreigner.
Thank you to Tibble's Evil Cat for donating £5 to the show, by the way. Thanks, Tibbles.
Yay. Cool. Thanks, Cat. No, but let's just look at a Catan. You know, a Catan is I assume a Catan is a damage dealer in this role.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. And it is, but at the same time it isn't, because what you're basically doing with the Catan is you're creating a zone in which
projection of power.
Yeah, in which no enemy will exist.
Yeah, that's what I actually put that down as a bully. So I put that down as a bully piece, like exactly what I use Gazzy for. I'm just like, I'm going to throw him that way, and then you're going to have to try and deal with him.
So I only played one game with a Catan, and I deployed him too far back, so he had to take 2 turns to get back into the game. That's probably why I lost it. But at the end of the game, I was like, wait, there's no way he can effectively kill him because he can't deal wounds in multiple phases. So I'm just going to plonk him on this objective, and he's never going to take it away from me, because otherwise I'll kill him. Yeah, and he did that. So I got a draw.
There's also a really big shout. Like I think the existence of the Catans and Gazzy really do push other armies to be like, do you know what? I'll put that one Psyker in. I want that one smite for when it's in the middle of the board, and I want to do like all phases. But even then, it's like, you know, like maybe you're taking them anyway. But there's a lot. So yeah, I think there's a lot of, there seems to be a lot of support in here and a lot of damage in here. But I don't know what you would do for like aggressive blocking and defensive blocking. Really, you've got the movement, but I don't know if you've got like the ability to control the board. So should we start like picking some roles? I
think Dick made a good point. Like in terms of the Catan, the Nightbringer, yes, he is a damage unit, but he's in that aggressive blocking role because he's shunting forward and just deleting stuff from around him and making people scared to come near him.
It's true.
Yeah,
he's projecting power all over, right? Okay, so should we go through some of these roles, explain them a little bit for people like Tibbles in the chat, and then pick out some units that we like it for?
Sure.
Alban Yadril, thanks for subscribing for the first time. Welcome to the team. Using some big dick energy there, which is what the show is full of today. All right, so I'm going to go for character suppression because I think that's a pretty easy one to pick out, and I think there's lots of opportunities in this book for character suppression, which is very different to the Orc book, for instance, where there's actually very little character suppression available. Obvious one. I'm just going to throw obvious ones out, and you guys can start going a bit more complicated. The Death Marks have got the opportunity to do that in a big way, but whether or not they make it to a list eventually. But you can if you wanted to. Like if there's one character that dominates the meta, you've got the ability to put some snipers out there as well, which are also deep strikers. Deep strike snipers. It's pretty good.
Yeah, but what's good about them is that what you used to do with them is that you kept them in reserve, and then when something else deep struck near you, you used one of their abilities to come in and shoot them. Now you can start them on the board, keep on shooting things, and if something deep strikes near you, you can still do the strat and do it again.
Can you?
Yeah.
Really? Well, they disappear from the board and then come back in again.
Yeah. Basically, their ability, the ability they used to have, became a strat now.
Well, that's pretty impressive. That's really
cool.
good. Are there other character suppression units that might make it? Because that's a standout. Like the Death Marks are like a standout unit for like you're bringing them because you feel like you've got to deal with characters, right? They're not. They're not really helping with any other role. Are there other units that you would take to try and take out characters that maybe do another role as well?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, the Catan powers can be used to snipe out characters.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I mention an unorthodox one that will never ever happen?
Yes,
but
definitely.
I want to mention it because it's funny. Hey, Dick and Nick, have you seen the Scarab Stratagem?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where you can remove a Scarab base to do D3 wounds. Yeah, it's funny though.
It is very funny. I got very excited and I made an ass out of myself because I went into like 3 different groups and I was like, oh, the strat got better because it gets mortal wounds automatically. And then somebody pointed out, no, you still have to roll a 2+. And I was like, fuck.
That's fine. It's fine.
The hardest role in the game.
It really is.
You either get it out or get continuously bombed by Scarabs.
Yeah, I mean the idea is good, but yeah.
I never said it. No, it isn't.
I've used it like
just funny
twice, where if it went well, it would have been game changing, and then you either roll a 1 on your mortal wounds or a 1, which means you don't get any mortal wounds. So
yeah, but better.
Okay. All right. So yeah. Okay. Scarabs for doing some character suppression
No,
is a wild vote. Don't write that down. Okay.
The Tribe Praetorians are very good at killing characters now.
Okay. Why?
Because they're very fast. Their infantry keyword, they're basically jetpack troops, 10-inch move. They are 3 attacks each. And if you equip them properly, it's either a it's a strength 5 shooting attack, -3 IP, 2 damage, and it's the same profile in combat. So I had a squad of 10. They charged a chapter master and a chaplain and killed them both like easily.
Ooh, nice. And because they can fly, they can jump over those screens, right?
Yep.
Have you tried the list with all the Tribe Praetorians and the Silent King yet, Dick?
I mean, I've played 2 games, so no.
You could have played that list. You said you had some Tribe Praetorians.
I mean, I do have some Tribe Praetorians, but sadly, I haven't been able to try that one yet.
I thought you were going to try like an upside down bucket as a Silent King, but okay.
So it's the ability to fly. It's the ability to fly and be quick that really makes them able to go and reach characters, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
For me, I always have this. For me, Necrons, the fast attack slot is always where it's at. And since the Tribe Praetorians went too fast attack, it's too crowded for me because I want
all. The destroyers left the fast attack section though, didn't they?
Yeah, but I hated them.
Wow. Yeah, they're very expensive to run in terms of CPM points.
But yeah. I played them the other day. I'd just like to say that I was really impressed by their output. But honestly, could you get uglier fucking models? Like, could there?
The
is there?
The old ones.
The destroyers, the big new one, is great, but I think his rules suck from what I've read. But like is my general thoughts. But the old ones are just awful looking. Are they not?
You mean the old ones or the OOP? Really?
The current ones, the current destroyer models that aren't the new.
Do you mean the old ones in the lore?
Oh my god. Okay, I'm not talking to you anymore. Anything else? anything else in character suppression? What do you think?
I've got an outside pick for character suppression. It's
I'm into it.
The Plasmancers.
Ooh, okay.
So they're kind of like a psyker, I guess, for Necrons in to some extent. So they've got a couple of abilities that can do mortal wounds. So there's a couple of the Arcana. So there's one called the Apt Vindicator. And basically you have to roll 3d6. You pick a unit within 18, roll 3d6, and if it's equal or greater to their leadership, they take d3 mortal wounds. So it's not very good. The Psychomancer, sorry.
Yeah,
he's good. That's the Psychomancer. Yeah. So that's like an outside pick for it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also you could probably. So this is for the Plasmancer. It is an outside shot for characters, but it's basically the Quantum Bomb. So once per battle, you pick a point, and the next command phase, a 6-inch radius, you got a chance to do mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So 4 to 5, it's D3, and a 6, it's 3 mortal wounds, but it's -1 for characters. So that's a really good mortal wound bomb, but it's still an outside pick for characters because it's only on a 5 or a 6. You're doing D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Plasmancers. They've got one there. So any other character suppression units in there, or not feeling it?
I mean, the Doomstalker. It has an amazing stratagem. The Revenge of the Doomstalker. This is the best stratagem of the entire book.
It's pretty fun.
It's very fun. It's going to be niche. But
yeah, tell us what it does.
So basically, let's say you've got a Smash Captain barreling into your lines, and he kills one of your support characters, and you're like, no, you killed him. But then you activate your trap card. For 2 CP, one of your Canoptic Doomstalkers can shoot at that character for free. And then until the end of the battle, each time that Canoptic Doomstalker makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, he gets +1 to hit as well.
So he's hit on
I love how you're saying for free right after saying the 2 CP bit. It's like saying you get a free toy with your magazine, but you pay $6.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's free because you pay 2 CP just to be able to say Revenge of the Doomstalker.
Yeah, and you lose your character as well. Yeah. That's also another free part of it.
Oh yeah. Well,
how do you guys feel about that interacting with resurrection protocols?
Amazing.
I never thought of that.
So resurrection protocols is 1 CP. So when your character dies on a 4+, you can bring them back at the end of the phase on D3 mortal wounds. I was just checking the wording to see whether it says it's not destroyed or not.
Yeah. There's a few here, like Relentless Onslaught combined with Disintegration Capacitors, where Relentless Onslaught is you pick a core infantry unit with a gun with rapid fire, and when you shoot on 6s, you get an additional hit. But equally, with the Disintegration Capacitors, it applies to Ghost weapons, and when you get a 6 to hit, you automatically apply a wound, right? So does that mean when you get a 6 to hit, when you play both those stratagems, do you get 2 automatic wounds?
No. I don't know in current.
Do you have a rules reference?
I don't, but there is precedent which I will find for you. I don't have it to hand.
No, I remember its existence, but at the same time, it was an 8th edition thing, so I don't know if it's been removed with the 9th edition.
It's also cross system. So but the general concept, just for people at home, without me looking specifically, is normally it's you proc both effects, but not at the same time. So a 6 will generate an extra hit, and then those 6s
that was a precedent, specifically with Imperial Fists, but I need the rules reference for now.
Yeah, well, we're 4 weeks away from an FAQ, so...
Yeah. You'd have thought these had been ironed out, considering we've already had to deal with the issue beforehand. I'm not asking it as a genuine question.
Well, you already know it's
an issue. Why is it still in here?
Yeah, that's why I think it'll be clear.
It shouldn't be an FAQ. You already know the issue exists when you publish the book.
That's true. But I mean,
shoulda, woulda, coulda.
I need to say nothing about 40k. I just need to say the app, and we all just fucking barrel laugh ourselves down the hill. Right, okay. So let's leave character suppression because I think we've done some stuff. Although Doomstalker 2CP, big shout on some intentional. Just stick a character out for bait. What character would you put out for bait?
Plasmancer.
Yeah, Plasmancer.
I mean,
that guy.
Also, the Catans are also characters as well, right? Who fucking implode when they die. They just do so many mortal wounds. So you could YOLO swag a Catan forward.
350 point explosion. Yep.
Yeah, I'd take that. That seems good. All right, so we've done character suppression. So we've ended up with Death Marks, Triac Praetorians, Plasmancers, and Doomstalkers, all doing it in very different ways, which is fun. All right, let's talk about one of the key bits of any game of 40k, which is damage. So obviously you've got damage that you want to do into damage you want to do into infantry, and damage you want to do into marine levels, and then damage you want to do. So Orc Boys, Terminators, and then vehicles are toughness 8. So a knight, kind of your 3 levels. For me, now show me where I'm wrong. Other than destroyers, I didn't see a lot of very consistent anti-vehicle, or am I wrong? Not that I would pay for.
I mean, you got the Doomsday Arc. That's pretty good at killing vehicles, but it's not, like you say, reliable. So it's not like a flat damage, which a lot of people have nowadays. It's still relying on a D6 or a D3 damage. Destroyers used to be... destroyers still have their stratagem. So heavy destroyers... their new big gun is what? Is it D6 plus D3 damage?
It's rubbish. The big heavy destroyer.
3D3 damage.
3D3 damage even, yeah.
But it's isn't it one shot?
Yeah.
I feel
like wants to hit.
Is it not the Catans that are dealing with vehicles, or am I wrong?
If they get there, yeah, they can deal with vehicles pretty well.
This is one of my current gripes when writing lists. I feel like I have to take either destroyers or Doomsday Arcs or Doomstalkers because they're the main high damage dealers.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there's just so many points, and they pigeonhole you into playing a certain way. So I'm trying to decide whether or not it wouldn't just be better to basically go all into Catan or Triarch Stalkers or just mass damage one fire instead. Maybe that will be better.
I feel like with the Catans at least, like they're multi-purpose. So you fighting monsters, let's say did books on the way, like, you know, or any multi-wound models. They've at least got those options. But I really didn't see anything. I was like, that's a good gun platform for like starting to nuke vehicles. Or it was like I was like with invulnerable saves, or even just generally hitting and other stuff. Although everything in Necron book hits fairly well, I didn't see anything.
And everything has invulnerable saves.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I didn't really like. Oh, where's the weight of fired in with vehicles? Which like, I just didn't see that in there, and I wondered if that's a problem that had always faced the Necron book.
When last edition, I killed knights with mass Tesla fire. Just shoot 80 Tesla shots into a knight and they'll die. I mean, you had to have all the buffs in the world stacked onto it, and then it would work. But it could work, and that was the most reliable way for me to kill a knight.
And you
with shooting.
You can't necessarily do that anymore because Tesla works differently now. It's unmodified rather than a 6+. Exactly. You can still get a +1 to hit from Sartek.
Yep. And multiple other ways.
Stratagem. But and like an Overlord can give you +1 to hit, but it's not proccing the extra Tesla hits as much as you could do.
So that went away, but now I was thinking, well, maybe I can just go all into the new warriors. I basically just take 100 of the new warriors with the new gun, so they'll pump out 200 shots, strength 5, AP 2. Maybe that'll work. But it's just, because if you look at the Doomstalkers and the Doomsday Arcs, even though I just bought 3 Doomstalkers and I love the model,
they look so good.
Yeah, and just to be able to play that stupid stratagem we just talked about is worth it. But I think that's not going to be the winning list, so to say. I think that's just me recreating my list, my old list.
Yeah, you come into this book with a certain idea of how Necrons are going to win the game based off the old one. It's not necessarily true because they've had a new edition and a new codex and so.
Yeah. Well, and also like I'm not 100% certain that I mean when you had to deal with knights previously, but now I ask myself about dealing with vehicles or like big monster, and I'm like, well, there's so much to do with that primary, isn't there? And there's so much to do with like having bodies on the board. And I think one of the strengths of this book, as I've read it, and like we talked about at the top of the show, is you can put so many bodies in the midfield doing so much work that you control so much of the board space that really, and with ObSec or even double ObSec, I know we're coming on to that conversation later, that you're able to just like shoot like all of the other scoring stuff off, and then just you'd be like, cool, you've got a couple of big vehicles, just like live your life, like I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like it almost feels like you can not have the conversation about vehicles and monsters. You can just be like, cool, I'm just going to leave it, because knights aren't a threat. So is it those Space Marine tanks? Are they going to be a thing? Because I feel like they're going to be light on bodies when they start going into 2s and 3s of those. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation at least. So
definitely.
So are we saying generally low on anti-vehicle, but if you were taking something, you would go for some Doomstalkers maybe, or Catans?
The list I'm gonna try Sunday is both. So both a Catan and Doomstalkers, just to try them out. Okay. But as I said, I think that's not going to be where it's at in the end. But I just want to try them out.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Tom, you got any thoughts on this sort of like damage conversation?
I don't think I even want to necessarily build it. I think there are things you need to build in that are able to push things off the midfield, but I'm thinking specifically more Wraiths, Nightbringer, Spiders, things like that.
So when we get into let's have the conversation now because it's both.
Let's do it.
So we're having the conversation about Terminators, like Marines, Custodies, and then below them is the 30-Aught boys. The conversation there, because I feel like Necrons have got no problem with the 30-Aught boys. They're just like, lol, they're dead.
Mm-hmm. Oh right, yeah, it's a different conversation.
Oh, okay. Sorry, the 30-Aught boys that are on an objective. Like pushing them off an objective, I think you can shoot them off, which is fine, but I think you can also combat them off like very easily as well.
Yeah, you can.
I agree.
Okay, so what units are we going to be using for pushing these guys off? I guess there's shooting them off and then there's punching them off, but like, what are you thinking?
Against orcs?
Yeah.
All of them.
anything in the book. But
I mean, I think you can even make warriors fairly decent in combat because they
Yeah.
get 1 strength 4 punch. You can give them +1 to hit from the
You
overlord.
make a
You
plus
can
one
give them
strength as well.
Reroll to hit. Yeah, there's a strat to give them +1 strength. There's also a way to get +1 attack, I think.
If you're
But
Novak.
yeah, if you know what, there's a is it the strat that gives you +1 attack? Yeah.
Which is pretty decent. I think it's decent dynasty because you can basically assume that you're going to be in combat for at least some time in the game. So it's going to be it's a buff that'll always pay off, I think. But that's neither here nor there. Oh.
okay,
Flayed ones are pretty excellent at taking out Orc boys.
so flayed
Because
ones.
they get 3 attacks each base. I think they still reroll wounds. They've got AP1. They generate extra attacks on 6s. So they're pretty good at taking off lots of Orc boys.
Surely also 10, 20 warriors also going to take off Orc boys all day.
If they can shoot and charge, then yeah.
The question is, are they going to be able to get onto the objective whilst taking up your place?
Yes. Well, that's why I think that there's other options, isn't there? I guess the main thing that I saw in the book, because I had a conversation. Can I have a conversation with you guys, I guess, about warriors versus immortals? Because
I love this one actually.
Okay. All right, sweet. Okay, I'll prefix the conversation and you guys can go in. So, having read the book, and again, like Nick said, not being very au fait with the book, like the thing that I think about the minute in the meta is obviously Marines. There's going to be a lot of them, and they're going to be on objectives. They're going to need to kick them the fuck off the objectives. So the thing that I really want is not damage 1. I want damage. I want like AP2, AP3 would be great, but AP2 is fine. And then I really want damage 2 or even D3 because I want to just take a Marine out a go per gun. And that's why, for me, having looked at it, I was like, Warriors versus Immortals. I would take Immortals because of their gun. But maybe there's a points conversation. I don't know, and they're tougher. I thought that was cool. So, what do you guys think? Like, Dick, I'll ask you first. How are you feeling about Warriors versus Immortals?
I mean, I legitimately have painted up 60 Immortals, and I love them. Unfortunately, they're all equipped with Tesla. Well, 55 of them, and it's just not going to work anymore.
No. And why not? Why not?
Because a Tesla gun is a Tesla Immortal is 19 points now each, and whilst they're objectively better when you compare them to almost everything else in the game for troop choice, it's just too expensive. For me at least, I think there's play in one unit of Tesla, but I would go with Gauss now every day of the week. And whilst when I first saw somebody else's photographic memory, I was still high on the Immortals because the Immortals are toughness 5 and free up save, so they're gonna live. But yeah, it's just, I think overall it's just not better than the Warriors, which are a bit cheaper and will also live due to reanimation and the reanimation buffs. So I've actually I've gone the other way now, and I'm painting up 40 extra warriors to put into my army, added to the 30 I already have.
Okay, so you've changed it up.
Yeah.
All right, Tom, what are your thoughts?
I go.
What's the new gun, by the way?
Oh, with the new gun. Yeah, go on, Tom. What do you think?
And here's a reason why I go Immortals. I don't value taking the troops choices from this book. So
aren't they troops?
Immortals and the Warriors are the two troops choices. This is why there's an interesting dichotomy between them. I understand going Warriors, because if you want to go ham into the unit, you probably go Warriors. But I just don't value going ham into the unit, because I think that when you can provide ObSec on everything else, what purpose does troops have? So what I end up going is, well, yes, troops are cheaper per model, they absolutely are. But Immortals are cheaper because you can take a unit of 5, whereas Warriors have a minimum squad size of 10. So if you're going to take a patrol, you take one squad of Immortals and be done with it. That doesn't mean I like the Immortals. It just means they're the cheapest option, which is why
I liked him. I liked the toughness 5 as well. Like I
Yeah,
thought
toughness 5 is fine. Yeah, it actually plays it in the list I'm trying to build anyway, because I like having lots of little small units that are all individually durable and can go over these pieces of terrain and then whack things off objectives while simultaneously standing upon them with ObSec. It comes back, like, I want to get into this discussion about double ObSec, number of models count for ObSec units versus ObSec. It doesn't matter if you count as 2 models for the purposes of ObSec if you can't stand on the objective.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, all right. Nick, you got any thoughts? Necron Warriors versus Immortals?
I'm a big fan of Warriors. Always have been. I've got 60, and that's what I started 8th edition with. They just weren't very good, but now I think you can build around the Warriors to make them pretty resilient. So the list that I'm going to try first, I've got 2 20s, 2 10s in Ghost Arcs, and then they're supported by 2 Technomancers. So you've got 20 warriors, you've got the maximum chance of reanimating loads and them being really, really hard to kill. The Technomancers can res D3 in your command phase. The Ghost Arcs can res D3 and maybe D6 with a stratagem per command phase. If you've got a Resurrection Orb in there, it's going to take your opponent a while to chip away 20, and even if you get them low, the Res Orb can come in and boost them back up to maybe much more. And like we said at the top of the show, the reanimation protocols and playing with getting them back up and where you put them, you can creep along the board, you can creep onto objectives, you can creep out of line of sight. I really like having the maximum amount of models to make it hard enough for my opponent to kill the whole unit completely, and also having lots of reanimation chances. So I really like the Warriors.
Yeah, I was also going to say, I think the thing.
Also, having the reanimator with them as well to give them +1 to reanimation protocols. So they're reanimated protocols on 4 rolling 1s.
It's 110 points of garbage.
Wait. Happening on 4s, re-rolling 1s is pretty great.
Very ham. What's happened?
I'm going all in the Warriors, so that's why I've got them in there.
I like the Warriors. I mean, we just went over it. I like the Warriors. I want to know, what gun are you taking on the Warriors? Because I think that's also one of the big discussions to have.
Yeah.
But you said you're taking the Canoptic Reanimator?
Yes.
Why?
To make my Warriors better. Because I've got loads of them, and I've got 2 big bricks. So I'm going all in.
Yeah, okay, but you do know that thing is it dies to 2 last cannons, and
yes, but because you've got a big enough warrior block of 20, you can hopefully hide the reanimator behind an obscuring piece of terrain.
You can't, because it has to see it.
Yeah, but
you have to see to
snake
reanimate
the unit. Yeah, exactly. As long as you can see one model in the unit around the corner.
Oh,
you've got a big enough unit to snake to where his position is.
I've got a big enough unit that snakes.
I mean, it has to be within 6 inches.
Yeah.
Wait, so but is it? But you, I guess it's like very tight, like organization. But I can see what you mean, Nick. Like you're just near an L, you sneak one model around the back, you remove the other models, so that's the only one that you have, and then you just keep reanimating them on a 4 rerolling 1s. I guess is really important. But then I feel like you're missing out on the key piece of what the warrior. Like you got me with the argument then on the Warriors, because actually, I think the thing about the reanimation is it like, and why the kind of like wailing of teeth about reanimation has kind of made me laugh, because maybe it's like injected into the points cost, maybe. Although she'll get the points right, it's obviously a joke. But like my point is that like one of the strengths now is when you proc a really good roll on the reanimation is putting the models in places where your opponent wasn't expecting them, which I actually think is like that's the win. And I feel like if you tie yourself to the reanimator to do that, like you actually kind of you almost take that strength away, and that there's that adaptability that you've got in reanimating into the right places, if that makes sense.
Well, I don't think you're necessarily tied to it. Like if I can reanimate a unit and put a model on an objective or get it back in range of the reanimator, I'm not going to just put it back in the range of the reanimator just to get that buff. I'll put it on the objective. So you're not necessarily tied to it that you have to get its buff all the time, every time. It's more there for the early game to make it really hard for the opponent to kill all 20 warriors.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's true.
All right, fair enough.
Like I said, I've not played a game with it yet. It's just a theoried list that I want to try. Okay. I'm not saying it's
cool.
The best.
Let me know. I'm really curious. If you can make it work, then I'll try it.
I'm in on Immortals because of the toughness and save. I actually think that, yeah, you're right. Like, reanimating, like, there's less of them. Reanimation's less of a big deal, but, like, they're tougher to get rid of, like, at the end of the day. And I know you pay for that as well, but I actually think that that's a bit of a positive. And they also, and this is important, they're on a smaller footprint. And I know that might not seem like a huge deal, but actually with the amount of line of sight blocking and being able to move around the board, actually that 10-man footprint versus the 20-man footprint, I think I'd like to pay for the... I'm obsessed with terrain at the moment and working out the angles and do you know what I mean? And I think that some of it, like, there's so much to do with the terrain right now that 10-man footprint might actually convince you to be a bit more survivable and harder to see, and instead of the big 20-man block. But anyway, that's why I like Immortals. But that was just me. Anyway, okay. Next up, so these are still damage dealers. So we're just talking units for taking stuff off the board. Have you got any units that would push in combat, either Marines, Custodies, or boys off the board? What are you choosing to do that job?
Well, those Immortals, as you said, if they're properly buffed, which can happen, can actually do some work because they all have 2 attacks each, and they can be strength 5, so they might surprise you.
Okay, all right, yeah, and they hit on 3s at the end of the day. That's not bad, is it? Let's be honest. Any other?
I'm tempted by the Scorpec destroyers, but that is more because I think the Scorpec destroyer models are really fucking cool, and I want to build loads. But they do have that magic damage. Yes, they've got a stratagem. In any phase, you can make them -1 to wound, which is pretty strong. They're already toughness 5, free up save, reanimation protocols, living metal, and all that stuff. So they're as resilient.
Bolter's wound on 6s.
Yeah. But they've got that magic damage 2 and a magic damage 3, and they've got good AP. So they're cutting straight through power armor if that's what you're going for. Obviously, invulnerable saves are going to be pretty good against them with that high AP. They've got good strength as well, so they're wounding on 3s. They're rerolling hits of 1 because they're destroyers, and if you've got a destroyer lord near them, they're rerolling wounds of 1. So they can be pretty reliable.
Will you be taking 5 or 6?
I don't know. I've not written a list with them in yet because Battlescribe hasn't updated yet. I don't know. Probably 5.
What is this? The 1940s? The game doesn't start until Battlescribe walks in. You can put that to a Katy Perry song. Can I make another big shout out? Because the question you're asking, Dick, whether it's 6 or 5 of the
Scorpex.
Yeah, Scorpec destroyers, is because obviously you don't want blast weapons to hit them, I guess.
Yeah, but also if you they can take a special weapon for every free in the unit. And the special weapon is +2 strength, -4 AP, and 3 damage. Which is, better than the normal weapon. But you can only take 1 if you take 5, and you can take 2 if you take 6. So
well, they're sexy marine killers, aren't they? -3 AP, damage 2.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the one for me.
And fast.
They're fast. So what about big shout out to old boys on the block now, but who doesn't love a bit of sword on board? The Lich Guard. How are you feeling about Lich Guard running around? Because, 4 up invuln save, toughness 5, 2 wounds each, they're the Terminators. I played against them the other day, and I was like, fuck these guys. Especially when you're, like, we haven't got to supporting pieces yet, especially when you're definitely putting 1 back in the unit a turn. You know, that's like, okay, that's a lot.
I really rate the War Scythe ones as damage dealers. Yeah.
What? So you would take War Scythe and then eschew the 4-up invulnerable save as opposed to having the 4-up invuln save and then the worst weapon.
But that's because most of the rest of the army is very good at dealing mass damage 1 wounds.
Okay.
And if you need damage 2, then you have to go to specialized units like the Lich Guard, like the Scorpex or Triarch Stalkers or whatever. So I feel that if you take them, then you want to take them for damage dealers, unless you really need a very hyper reliable unit which will stay alive on an objective. But then you should take Wraiths.
Okay.
I hope it was take Wraiths and I'm back in World. What's going on?
The Wraiths are also damaged 2 innately, so still better.
Oh, maybe.
The one thing Lich Guard are really good at is their core. That's just amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say because there's a lot of elite infantry that don't have the core key with like the Triarch Praetorians. They don't have core, but Lich Guard do. So there's quite a lot of buffs in the book that only affect core, so they can take advantage of those.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I feel like the Lich Guard, the ones I played the other day, when it was a block of 10. So you're talking 20 wounds, 4 up invulnerable save, like toughness 5. I was like, that is a monster to get rid of. And then when he started putting 1 back into the unit a turn, and that's not including reanimation, obviously, on top of that as well, I was like, this is definitely their objective, especially for an army that like wants to control the midfield. And I know, so Tom, talk to me about Wraiths. Why do you want to take Wraiths in your list?
Because they fit the win condition, but I'd like to play 2 with Necrons really, really well. They can ignore terrain when they move over it. They're good melee dealers, and they're incredibly tanky. So what that means is you can stick them in the corner of a ruin and just sit there. And at that point, you just jump them out whenever you want to, kick something off an objective, and then just stand there. And it's like, well, you've got a certain amount of time to deal with these, and their objective secured. So remember that game we played the other day on stream where we had my shield captain? Mm-hmm. That one ObSec guy just running around the board.
And their objective secured because
what you can do is you can take one of the custom dynasties, and then one of the ones that you get in the first section allows you to make your army, your detachment, objective secured. And then you can take a second one from the other side that allows you to move 6 inches before the first battle round, right? Mm-hmm. So you take your entire army of wraiths and spiders, you move them 6 inches forward at the start of the game to make sure you're in that terrain, and they're quite quick and they ignore terrain, so they're able to jump between the bits of terrain and then just hide there. And it's like, well, how am I going to push these things out? Am I going to shoot them? Going to be kind of tricky, especially when you're not ignoring line of sight. Okay, am I going to move into the middle of the board and just like push them off with melee? That's also easier said than done, especially when you can do things like position them slightly off the ruin, so it's harder to charge in there and kill your stuff, but also incredibly durable anyway, as you've already been through. They're very, very strong in combat.
Okay, what race are strong in combat?
Yeah.
They took a little bit of a hit from the last book, because they're not hitting on 3s anymore, and they only got a 4+ invuln now as well.
True. They are still 175 points of 5 though.
That's quite cheap. That's quite cheap compared to
everything else. And then you take 15 of them, because you take them in backs of 5, so you don't get hit by the blast roll. And then you're like, well, that's about a quarter of my army. That's still pretty hard to shift.
Yes, I mean, it's a lot of wounds. They're
very flexible.
3 wounds each.
I'll double check it. I thought it was 4 wounds, but I'll double check it for you, mate.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that a lot, because worth checking out. So, is there anything else that you would a wraiths of 3 wounds? Yeah,
3 wounds. Yeah, there we go. Which is still fine. It's still fine, and especially when you stick something like a Nightbringer in there as well, that's an incredibly heavy punch if you need to push something off the board in a certain area. You can then mix in other durable units like Tomb Spiders, which do a similar thing with a fly keyword. It's all in all very, very good. Although it does come a little bit down to, when you're talking about things like double ObSec, it comes down to, well, I personally like this all the time, but even if I can still see why you might go for the troop-heavy, warrior-heavy double ObSec stuff. But it then comes down to, it only ever is acceptable when you have a meta that has lots of breachable terrain. If the terrain isn't breachable, it's absolutely mandatory that you take these rather than the warriors, because now you've got to walk all the way around the terrain and get onto those objectives. It's just not doable because you need to be able to hide and jump out and take.
Most of the boards I see now have mass breachable terrain.
True.
All of the WTC boards have only breachable terrain.
Yeah, and then it becomes a discussion. I still don't think they're optimal, but at least it's a discussion, so I can understand your perspective.
Okay, they're also fast as well, the wraiths, which is an important element. Like you can't disagree with the fact that they are fast, and they've got they've got a bunch of attacks, and they're pretty cool. And that would be 45 wounds as well with a 4-up invulnerable save on your block of 5, right? In total, so you'd have 3 blocks of 5, so you'd end up with 45 wounds at toughness 5 on that invulnerable save, which is pretty good with a 3-up armor save as well. So like they're pretty consistent. And also, they shoot, they fight. You can push stuff off objectives with them. I can see definitely why you're a big fan of those guys. So that's the wraiths. All right. So damage. Do you think there's anything else out there for damage that we need to talk about, or not really?
Well, I think Tom mentioned the spiders, but briefly, they're pretty good now.
I love the spiders. Can I just say that I've talked to you about this before. I've never been a big fan of the Necron models necessarily, although the Canoptic stuff kind of took. But I am in love with how the Doomstalker looks. I think it's radical. But then I don't think I'd properly ever looked at the Spider, if I'm honest. I think I'd not given it the time of day. But it's a fucking radical model. Do you not think? Yeah, I'm really into that. And it's just got a dumb amount of attacks. Like, it's toughness
pretty high
6.
strength as well.
Yeah, toughness 6 with 6 wounds. It's got 5 attacks at strength 8, of all things. -3 doing 2 damage. So that's fucking great. And the reason I really like that is because it's wounding Marines on 2s, but it hits on 4s, which is shit.
Yeah.
Right, that's a struggle. You're on the struggle bus. But I like the Spiders. Tom, you got any thoughts on the Spiders?
Yeah, I mean, they fulfill a similar role to Veros in the regard that they just sit there, be annoying, and they're incredibly hard to shift. And are ObSec when you do it that way.
They're just not quite as fast because they're only moving 6. They're pretty slow.
Yeah, and they also don't have the infant save, which is a big deal.
No.
But then the particle beamers are pretty crazy as well, because you end up with 2 of them. So you end up with 12 shots coming out of each spider for only 10 points more at strength 5, which is also decent. I don't know.
Yeah,
I like them. You got any thoughts on the Spiders?
I mean, people have been telling me that they're very good, and I think I agree, but I'm just not sure yet. Like, one of my dream lists is playing with 27 Scarab bases in a single army.
Only 20. Oh yeah, Rule of 3.
That's the most you can. And so taking a couple of spiders would be mandatory with that. But at the same time, I always hated the models, and they've been terrible for so long. No.
What, the swarms or the spiders?
The spiders. Swarms were epic.
Oh, okay. I really like the spider. I like the spider model. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, a lot of shots. Like I did the maths earlier. 225 points for a unit of 3, and you end up with 36 shots at strength 5. And then if you charge, you end up with 18 attacks at strength 8 -3, doing 2 damage. So it's all on 4s. So like I recognise that, but it just feels like that's a lot of stuff. Like that you can hammer in.
In theory, you can have that Techno Monster nearby, which will give him +1 to hit.
Yes, exactly. Although it's interesting that we talked. I don't know if we've had the conversation of objectives secured properly. Well, should we move on from damage? Has anyone got anything else in the damage category they'd like to talk about? Apart from Catans, which is just probably the time to bring up the fact that you can just one-shot Ghazi. That's the time, right?
Love it.
Surely that's what they're there for.
Specifically for Gaz, yeah.
Well, I mean, Gulliman and what's her face? Not that she sees much play anymore, but resurrects back to life. That lady, Celestine.
Celestine, yeah.
Yeah, like surely. So we're talking about. Are we talking about the Nightbringer, aren't we?
Yeah, he's got a pretty big boost.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah. So he ignores.
Yeah, I think
he's got. So
if you're going to a tournament today, you will always bring a Catan, just because there's like half of the armies won't be able to do anything against them.
I mean, I feel like that Catan will always be the same one. It will be the Nightbringer.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
maybe the Transcendent Catan. If you're short on 80 points.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you don't want to half-ass a Catan, though.
No, you're probably right.
So, yeah, you're going to bring the Nightbringer. That's going to be a special rule, right? Drain life. Each time this model makes a melee attack, this allocated to enemy model. The enemy model cannot use any rules to ignore the wounds taken. And I just don't know how. I just don't know how a list doesn't start with that. I just don't know how that just doesn't go straight in, like end conversation, like no invulnerable saves, no like reducing damage.
It's very expensive.
It's so expensive. I think it's still too expensive for what it does, but that's probably because I'm biased.
But you need what it does so much. Like we were already talking about lists. Like the issue isn't necessarily even not being able to sit on the objectives. It's not being able to push things off. The Catan Nightbringer is just so good at it. And when you compare it to things like the Deceiver, then it's so much better for its points.
It's also very small. Like you could line sight block it easy. Like that's a
yeah. It's very slender, I think, is the correct word, because I've got a metal one behind me.
yeah. Okay, but I mean, it's like it's managed. It's not a Mortarian, right? Like it's manageable
No,
on the
it's not a
tabletop.
funky boy. It's a 40mm base.
Like so,
40
like
mil base.
yeah. Yeah,
That's-
like it's
yeah.
just this monster that's just gonna like just appear next to you. It's horrific, and like surely it's like this and the Silent King are like as two standout models. Whereas the Silent King you build around the Silent King, this is specifically just like a horror.
Plug and play and it goes. Just plug and play.
Plug and play.
Yeah.
Like, and it like you don't need to support it. You could support it if you wanted to, but like you don't need to. Could you think of a reason you wouldn't take it? Just its expense.
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. Yeah, but I feel like you need
Because for his points, you can take 10 Praetorians and still have 100 points left over. Those 10 Praetorians can do actions. Those 10 Praetorians can hold objectives. They can kill loads of stuff.
But I feel like this is especially like you were talking earlier about you were going to take the not the Annihilation Barge. You were going to take the for dealing with vehicles. I just feel like any points you spend on trying to deal with vehicles just goes on this guy. And you just be like, I'm just not going to play that game, and I'll just put the Nightbringer in my list instead. And then if I get near a vehicle with it, it's dead. Sweet. But it also does other stuff. And you can't really deal with it because you've got board control. You've got bodies, right? You should have bodies everywhere. I feel. So I don't know.
Units everywhere, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's I will include one in all of my lists.
Yeah, same.
But when I first read the Codex, I was like, nah, it's too many points.
Okay.
Because I felt like I would pigeonhole myself too much by taking one. And then I saw a single battle report with one, and I was like, okay, never mind.
So, bit of trivia: this is still cheaper than the Nightbringer was in the 3rd edition Necron Codex.
And better.
Yeah, well, it's 360 points in 3rd ed.
Yeah, and also the Nightbringer, like if he does blow up, like he blows up, you can make him blow up on a 4+, which is really decent as well.
You can't re-roll it though, which sucks.
You can't re-roll it.
It's not something that you're spending stratagem CP to do, like with knights, for example.
No, I honestly, living metal, so heals a wound a turn, that'll be clutch in some situations when you can only do so much damage per phase. Like, I don't know.
Well, also, yeah. I mean, it basically means you have to do it in four phases rather than 3 for the 9 wounds. But also, it's a 9 wound character that you can only 3 wounds to.
Yeah.
You can't catch him out.
Yeah.
It's like Gazzy that can't be targeted.
Yeah. You can. He's got the rule enslaved to the Star God. So you are able.
Sorry, I missed that.
You are absolutely able to.
Why not just give 12 wounds and make sure you can only take 4? That's just rude, mate. I'm not a fan of it.
The maths is real different.
Very sad times. Yeah.
But it also can do a Catan power as well. Nightbringer for me would make it. I'd put the Nightbringer in every list and enjoy using the Nightbringer to control the board space. I'd control where things are going. That's what I use Gazzy for, really. I'm like, come and get me, or like he's going to be over there. Like, but this is better. Yeah. Like in 1,000 ways.
he just kills all the stuff the rest of your army just can't.
Yeah.
I suppose if your opponent only has like 1 or 2 psychers, you can control where they go, because if you put the Nightbringer on the left, you kind of can bank that they're going to have to put their psychers over that side to deal with it.
Yes.
And maybe that frees up the right flank for other stuff. I don't know. So
just brilliant, like amazing, the Nightbringer. And yes, I know someone in the chat is saying, I can't remember, I think it was Alan Droll, like maybe you'll see more of the Void Dragon if you go into a more vehicle heavy meta, because obviously he's got those bonuses against it and can heal if he kills a vehicle as well. But I feel like the Nightbringer just ignoring stuff is actually going to be more clutch as we go forward, because I imagine Mortarian's rewrite is going to have maybe 18 wounds, max 6 a phase or something like that.
That said, I would really like to take the Void Dragon just because its model is so cool.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
so convince me, please. Make him better. No, I don't want to kit bash for Void Dragon. Fuck you. I want to use this model. It's cool.
I'm so sorry. All right, so so let's talk about support pieces, shall we? Because let's just talk about aggressive blocking and defensive blocking. So aggressive blocking is units that you're going to use to push units off objectives or pin an army in the back of the board. Defensive blocking is units that you're going to use to control objectives effectively and just make it so you stand there. So Have you guys got any shouts for this? Tom, I suppose this leads into your conversation about...
I mean, it's kind of like the projection of power we were talking about earlier with the Nightbreaker is effectively blocking, right? Because if you walk into that space, you're going to die. So therefore, that space is blocked off.
Yeah.
Same with Wraiths. Same with Tomb Spiders, which can just jump over walls and go nom 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 nom.
Mm-hmm.
So those units, which are effectively bullies, are blockers to a degree, right? It's not like it's not the same as like standing directly in someone's face like 30 Plague Bearers and saying, "Hey, I'm just going to net you and mean you can't walk out of your deployment zone."
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the same.
Especially while that's harder to do because of MSU, right? So if you've got a big unit, you need to tail the entire thing around. Whereas if you've got small units, you can just move around a little bit more easily.
So what units are you going to use to push stuff off objectives?
To push stuff off objectives, well, I mean, I'm just going to do what I said I'd be doing with the Wraiths and the Spiders and the Nightbringer, where you just walk up into the center of the board and prevent people from walking up to you, which is the form of aggressive blocking I want to do. I think that's a win condition.
With 27 Scarabs.
You can do some Scarabs if you want to. The Scarabs are fine.
Nick, what do you think? Defensive blocking, aggressive blocking, how are you feeling about it?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm a big fan of the Warriors for defensive blocking, because I think if you build around them, you can make them not unkillable, but very difficult to kill. And like we said earlier, you can use reanimation protocols to snake on or out of line of sight or onto objectives. And there's lots of ways to bring them back and make them more resilient. So yeah, I think that's they're pretty good for defensive blocking.
Yeah, very good. Nick, both of our show hosts have left at the same time. That's great. Okay. All right. So being able to push stuff off the objectives is, I think that's the key tenet for 9th edition, right? That's what you have to do. You have to get these things. You have to go and push things off objectives. And I think this is a key, point of the army. And I feel that they've got loads of options, unlike other books. That's actually where I felt in my game the other day against Necrons. I felt that my orc army didn't have. I couldn't push. When he had 10 Lich Guard on the objective, I was like, cool, I can't push them off. End of conversation. It's just 30 boys can do some okay damage, but then they just die the turn after. And then it's done. So I just couldn't push them off the objective. And I was like, well, this is pretty terrific, pretty horrific. And then there was loads of other units, obviously, around the board as well. So I think this is actually something that the Necrons do really well. I think that they hold objectives well and they push stuff off objectives well because they've got some actual good, dedicated melee units, which some of the armies would be super jealous of. I think this is actually a huge strength in the book. I don't know if Dick, do you tend to agree? Not agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah. That's basically what I'm trying to do with all my list at the moment. I think that they have a lot of killing power, but you really have to apply it well. But the main strength is going to be sit on objective, and declare pieces of the board to be yours.
Yes.
And that's just what it's going to be, I think.
Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, it's a shame that Tom. We've been building up to this conversation about objective secure, and Tom's gone for the bit that he's been building up to. For
one bit he wanted to be here for.
Yeah, the one bit he wanted to have a conversation about.
I mean, we can talk about it. It's the objective secured is one of the things. One of the custom dynasties which everybody jumped on immediately. It's so powerful, but at the same time, you can also say, and that was what Tom was saying earlier in the chat, was maybe you don't really need it. What you can do is, what I was looking at is double up on objective secured. So I was going to take 20 warriors, give them super objective secured, put them on objectives. And Tom was arguing that you didn't need it because if you got 20 guys on an objective, you would be controlling it anyway, and nothing was going to be near it. And he just came back, so he probably has something to say about it.
No, it's fine. It's
No, you've
Wait a minute. I accidentally mute my mic like an idiot. Sorry, it's fine. It's one of those situations where I was trying to work out where would you need the double ObSec, right? Let's say you've got a small unit of Necron warriors left on that objective. and then you've got like 12 poisonmen, 7 Necron warriors, whatever, right? That's when you come into play, right? But then you're just getting kicked off next turn anyway. And also, how on earth did those 7 Necron warriors end up on an objective that the Orc boys are on? How did that happen? Did they push up the middle of the board and charge the boys? Maybe. Well, I've got units that do that better because they're not going to die, right? I mean, it's going to give me one turn of doing that. Whereas when I could take something like Race, I mean, it's like, well, the reason why the bike was so good a couple of weeks ago is because it had ObSec. Does making it into 2 models make it any better? No, not really.
If everybody has ObSec, then it is
right.
better.
Okay.
So primaries are really important in 40k now. ObSec is really valuable now.
Yes, it
if
is.
both people have ObSec, having double ObSec is even better than having ObSec.
But only if it's 1v1 for some situation.
If you get a bunch of codexes now where every single one has a way to make your entire army ObSec, yes, it will be more valuable.
Which is it's looking like it.
Because, I don't know if it is looking like it.
Marines have
2 books. If it starts to happen that way, then yes, I will agree with you. But then it's a case of, well, what's more valuable now? Have I got the capability to take those units that can get double ObSec without just getting smacked off the board regardless?
I think the strength of being able to give stuff double, like ObSec is not that you then double it up. Like I would say that's a subsidiary thing. I think the important part of that ability, and I think the one that I think it's going to be really, really key, is that all of the stuff becomes ObSec. And I think that actually is really, really valuable. And I think conflating the conversation about double ObSec doesn't really mean anything. I think it's the fact that the race to become ObSec is far more important a conversation than you double ObSec warriors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the gap between not ObSec and ObSec is greater than the gap between ObSec and being counted as 2 models.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And because of that, I think it's a super...
might be ObSec. It's so amazing.
Yeah, everything. It's brilliant. I think it's I honestly don't know how, are the other buffs worth it that you aren't, I don't know. It seems very strong.
Let's say... Oh, sorry, Dick, you go, mate. I'll hold my point for a second.
Okay. There was in Australia. There was this, basically a meme list which was doing the rounds. That was winning a lot of tournaments, or a couple of tournaments.
The Descals.
No, with Necron.
They had ObSec.
They had
ObSec.
And that was basically all tanks. It was all the tanks and 20 warriors. Imagine how good that would be if you have all ObSec on it as well.
Dude.
Because it's just that one outscores. Also, I think because the stuff that's generally ObSec in most armies is stuff that really leans into the output that you get from a Necron book. The Necron book wants to take out most of your ObSec scoring stuff. Yeah, you might have other units that score, but the stuff that the Necrons can take out, in my opinion, are all of those infantry blobs that are around. Yeah, or maybe even the bikers. And then at that point, then they're just... It's like moving into where they're already strong. Go on, Tom.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to turn it around a bit and give us an example of a situation where I would say the double ObSec is the best way to run it. For example, let's say Nicholas is right and we have all these books that then allow you to take your entire army as ObSec, right? Well, in which books is it then worthwhile taking the troops to get the double ObSec? And the answer is in whichever books you can take that and maintain board pressure, right? For example, if I'm able to take a Necron list where I can take ObSec on my army and I take a bunch of warriors and I can maintain my pressure against other armies, and on average, I stick better into the center, even against armies where they are ObSec on things like the luxury units, like the tanks and like the jet bikers or what have you, then it's worth me doing it. And then the swing point is some of these books it's worth having because you can... If you were to both take a double ObSec and one army pushes you out, then that army might still be able to push armies out that have basic ObSec, and then it comes down to who has the most models.
Okay, all right, yeah. Good points. Definitely. I think the defensive.
Sorry, I don't know if that was clear.
Yeah, it was. The defensive blocking on the objectives and the aggressive blocking to push stuff off objectives, I think, is a if I was going to do a meta watch style slidey bar, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. For this book, I think that's what it plays so strongly at. In my opinion, which is why maybe I'd go for more a defensive build, I think. So,
Can you define defensive build for me, Rob, very quickly?
Well, so specifically, we were talking Lich Guard. Sorry, I'd go for the invulnerable save over the output, like where Dick would go for the output, which I think is a fair point over the defense. But you obviously have already lent into that defense because you've already gone for race.
I just don't want to conflate the idea that defense just means that you sit back. Which in let's say football, if you're playing defensively, you are sat in your own half pressing constantly. In 40k, if we're saying defensively, you can still be pushed straight up the board right in your opponent's face, but it just means that you're a little bit more durable.
Yeah, I just meant more tanky units generally.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that distinction was clear.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think has anyone got anything else that they want to bring up for these units? Defensive, like aggressive blocking units? Anything? No. Yeah. No. So because we could talk about support units because I have got like a humdinger of a support unit on the back of this conversation. Am I allowed?
Yes, go for it.
Yep. Support unit. Okay. Let me talk about my favourite support unit in this book. Yeah, because it's just brilliant. It's the Psychomancer. I love this little dude. Because he's got an ability, Harbinger of Despair, right? In your morale phase, you can select one, because it doubles up with what Tom was talking about and what we were just talking about with the ObSec thing. In your morale phase, select one enemy unit within 12 inches of this model and roll 3d6. If the result is greater than the enemy unit's leadership characteristics, select one of the results opposite to take effect until the start of your next morale phase. Each unit can only be selected by this ability once per phase. So you can select a unit can not perform actions, whatever. That might be really clutch at a certain time, but the situational, not what I'm taking it for. The selected unit loses objective secured ability. Now that's amazing when you've doubled up with giving your whole army objective secured. So they've moved on, they're like, I'm ObSec, and you're like, cool, my unit that shouldn't be ObSec is ObSec, and now your unit that is ObSec isn't ObSec. Like, I just think that's wicked, personally. And I think that plays in so well, and you would, you'll catch people out more than they would realise. You know, like, you're playing a Custodians player that is like, haha, this is my whole army, whatever. And you're like, not now. He's like, fuck. It also means you can, because it's just a single model as well, obviously, you can run him around with, single other, you don't have to do it with, big units. I don't know. I really like that ability. And then there's also, selected unit cannot, defend, fire overwatch, which I think is rubbish. And there's also half advanced rolls for charge rolls made for a selected unit, which clutch, maybe, but it's 12 inches, so you've got to get pretty close. And he's not that quick, arguably. But it might be fun to maybe even put this guy in reserve. Bring him on from a board edge near an objective at the side. They're not seeing that. You run up, yeah? Mm-hmm. And then you you can charge into the unit if you want to, or just put something on there and just be like, oof, you're not ObSec anymore. That's wicked. I like it anyway. Have you guys seen him, or you think he's rubbish and didn't read him?
I've seen him, but I don't really like him.
Okay.
But it's not... It's not because I think he's not good. I think he does have a role, but it's one of the strengths of this book again. I want all the things, and I want him, and then I was like, okay, I just can't fit him in anymore.
I read him. I saw he affects leadership, and I completely ignored it because most of those units that have rules like that are shit. But I think that one ignoring objective secure rule is the best thing about him. But it still relies on you having to beat their leadership on 3d6.
I know, but it's... Yeah, I think you got a decent chance.
And he can take an Arcana for basically a smite every turn, which is good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't know. I liked him, so I just thought he was a cool buff piece, and I thought if you're already playing that objective secured army, then just go nuts. I think it will swing you an objective which your opponent wasn't suspecting, on a turn. And I think that's actually really important. Or you could even do it the other way.
It's another reason not to need the double ObSec, because you just take your opponent off ObSec and you just need one model of ObSec stood there.
Exactly, right? I just think that's baller.
God.
Yeah, I actually don't know what his points are. But if he's he's
about
below
80, 90 points.
That's too much. Maybe that's too much. If he was around 60, then
that's the point of all of these guys. I like them, but they're just a teeny bit too expensive. One of the reasons why you would have them is just because they give codes to units near them. Let's see, Chronomancer is 80 points. That's not that bad. But it's just, for that point, I can have 5 Scarab bases.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're super right. I just, it's just the clever dickhead in me who wants to just do that move one time and like finger gun and moonwalk backwards at the same time out of the room.
I feel like
and then just high five people around me. Just like, did you do the thing? I'm like, fucking did the thing. Like I'm a genius. But
Achievement
and then,
unlocked.
achievement unlocked, and then lose. All right, what other support characters do you definitely need? I mean, Silent King. He's the ultimate support character, right?
Yeah.
I haven't looked at his war scroll yet because it's too big.
It's an entire page, yeah.
It's an entire page. It is. Yeah. I mean, he does so much. He gives so much. Like, he's brilliant. Dick, what have you thought? What do you think about him?
I think he's good. I don't think he's tournament winning good, but he definitely has play. And I just love the idea of taking him and 30 Praetorians, support characters, and then Scarabs probably.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's one of those where you're going to have to really build your list around him, just to like make him worthwhile, right? When you pay him that kind of points, because he's not like a Nightbringer where you get the value just by walking around and twatting people. But he's also one of those where he's so expensive. Like he's another one of these premium units, and it's like, is this really the best way to play this book? Probably not, especially when you're forcing it to taking Caesaricon, which I actually think taking Caesaricon is fine because it gives you, like, it's one of those where you remember when there was that phase where Drakari players were taking like a Cabal of the Blackheart patrol just to get the Vet stratagem? Mm-hmm. Well, you can do the same thing with this because they have a unique stratagem for Caesaricon is a 4+ deny for 18 inches from any Caesaricon unit.
Yeah, but you have to be, your entire army has to be the same dynasty to benefit from codes.
Yes, it does. So that's the problem.
Yeah. Personally, I think Silent King's baller. Put ultimate support piece, who's also like, they've done some janky ways to make it so that he's untargetable behind securing, which I think is super clever. Like, just really, really good. Like, but you're right. I think you do a show on you basically you've got the Necron book, and then you've got the Silent King and the Necron book. Like, there's two ways to build the army. So we'll just put a star next to him, and we'll come back to a deep dive. On the Silent
you have to do a
King.
full build on the Silent King. Yeah,
definitely.
You can't just do him in passing like the Nightbringer.
But the ultimate buff piece. What are the buff pieces do you guys like in this book?
Well, because I'm wanting to play lots of warriors and big warrior blobs. The Technomancer has the Rites of Reanimation, where he can heal D3 warriors back to the unit. So I think he's worth taking if you're going all in on warriors, just to keep that unit alive for longer and frustrate your opponent even more because they can't kill it. And then I'd also be taking the Catacomb Command Barge with that. I mean, the buff that it provides, so it buffs so you have Relentless March, so you add 1 to the movement characteristics of models within 6. So you warriors are only movement 5. If you're going to get to those objectives turn 1, you want like as much as movement as possible to get on there. And they also get My Will Be Done, so you add 1 to hit within 9 in a command phase. So making 20 warriors hit on 2s is pretty good.
It's pretty massive. Yep. It's pretty massive. Like you can't. The My Will Be Done is like, especially the fact you can build it up so it's twice, right? If you take a Pharaon?
Yes. Yeah. So you make
Pharaon.
Yeah. Well, my problem was when I pictured making a lord into a Pharaon, I pictured Flareon, and I imagined like just evolving like an Eevee into a different type of Necron Lord.
That's a good conversion.
Yeah. I was like, oh my god, Jolteon? I don't want to make that my lord, but if I've got to. So I Will Be Done will be good. Also, the Implacable Advance one, I don't think it's called Implacable Advance, or maybe it is. But the +1 move's actually pretty big deal, so it makes everything move. Yeah. Move 6, so, which isn't tons, but like, whatever. I think
he obviously gives those buffs to the units, but I think the Catacomb Command Barge I've always loved the Catacomb Command Barge. I think it's just an all-round beast. Because you take it in a detachment, which gives it objective secured. It's got all, obviously, that's amazing. You can give it a Warlord. If you're taking it as Nihilic, which get objectives secured for everyone as well, there's a item which is Nihilic specific, which gives him a 2-up save and a 6-up DPR. You can give him a Warlord trait that makes him reduce damage by 1. And Quantum Shielding now has changed to give him a 5+ invuln and only wound on a 4+. So all that combined makes him an absolute bit of a beast, I think. Because he's hard to kill, he's pretty fast, he's okay in combat, he's pretty decent at shooting, and he's ridiculously hard to kill. And he's buffing your troops around you. So I think it's just all around a great choice. So I don't think I'll never leave the Tomb World without him.
I really like him as well. The only point is he's 50 points more expensive than a normal Overlord.
Mm-hmm.
And that means it's quite a lot. So when I start to look at shaving points, then that's probably where I'd look. But yeah, I would begin every list writing session with Catacomb Command Barge, Nightbringer, 20 Warriors, 9 Scarabs.
27 Scarabs.
Hopefully. Also,
as many Scarabs as you can find.
Definitely. My favorite support piece are the Crypto Roles. I mean, Scarabs are obviously amazing, but I talked about them too many times. So Crypto Roles are also one of my auto includes. They're basically 40 points of free actions. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, engineers of the future is what they are. Yeah,
they're really good. I played a game with them last week. They charged into a unit of Marines and had 6 attacks each because they were near a what's it called, a Cryptek. It was amazing.
Nice.
And they also guard the Cryptek, which is a big deal. My favourite thing about them is their shooting attack is called the Scouring Eye.
Yep.
Yeah, just one Scouring Eye, which is pretty fun. Crypto Thrall's really good for, like you say, they're just doing actions and they're not being involved in the game at all, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they don't cost anything. They're pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, that's your favourite support piece. Nick, you've said yours as well, right?
Yeah, Catacomb Command Barge.
Yeah. Tom, you got any favourite buff piece?
No, because I haven't got to the data slates yet. I barely just finished the stratagems.
Okay.
I've done 11 pages of notes now.
4 of which you read tonight.
Yeah. No, it's 11 pages of notes have gone up by 3.
Okay.
I think we've gone past 1 more page.
All right, so that support piece is done. I mean, there's lots of support pieces in this book, though. Like, I guess there's loads of good relics as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Reanimation Orb is obviously, like, a big deal.
And Cryptic Arcana as well.
Cryptic Arcana, yes. There's also, obviously teleporting your unit across the board, which is, I forget its name.
Veil of Darkness.
Veil of Darkness, which is also a big key piece.
That has been a key piece since, like, 3rd ed or whatever it was.
Yeah, since the beginning of Necron time.
It's always been there. It's the only consistent in 40k, Veil of Darkness.
And a Nightbreaker.
No, well, that hasn't been seen since 3rd ed.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
But Veil of Darkness, so just casting that unit across the board, big deal, right? Veil of Darkness.
Yep.
Yeah. So those support pieces. So do you think that, like, and is the Veil of Darkness locked into a particular sub-faction, or is it just generic?
Generic.
It's for anyone. Yeah, all the relics. No, there is specific relics for the dynasties, but yeah, that's available to anyone.
Yeah, okay. And taking it every game.
Yeah, you would do. It's good.
Okay, so you're going to take that every game. So that's a key support piece. That's just an item, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made that basically all characters are good support units because they project the codes. Which could be clutch if we all realize how to use them properly. And their buffs are all decent. I mean, they're not game breaking, but they're not bad either. Even, like, I think objectively the worst is the Plasmancer, which I made fun of earlier. But even him, he's 75 points for a smite and a good shooting attack. So yeah, it's not so bad. And codes. So.
Okay. All right, yeah, so, like, many support pieces, effectively. Choose your favourite at this stage.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's everything then. I think we've covered all the areas. So have you got, like a roundup, do you think, of of what you think this army's going to play like? You know, obviously it's the first pass, but what are you thinking at the minute?
I don't know. I haven't had the book long enough or played any games to make any statements about what it's going to play like. But I think the objective secured thing is going to be one of the strongest things that it has. But it may be that in a year's time, everyone has access to that type of chapter trait, so it becomes not as good in a wider meta context. But me personally, I after reading the rules, and maybe it's because that's how I want to play the army. I want to play big warrior blobs that are resurrecting, and it's mainly about warriors and getting onto objectives and surviving, being resilient, putting out a little bit of damage, but mainly playing around, sitting on the objectives with warriors.
Okay. For me, I feel like it's an army that's like gonna it's got so many options to push into the midfield and push stuff off objectives, which is good. Survivability is obviously also really high as well. And I think playing its own game is a better way of playing this army than trying to almost play someone else's game. I think like your ability to like upskill your talent when you're playing with this army, especially with reses, if it's on warrior units or even anything, I think it will actually really, really be quite telling at a certain point. Especially like when you maybe go into a combat planning to lose some to res some around a corner is going to just be wild, I think. And some people are going to be like, no. So yeah, I think, and also like timing when to do those things, time when to Veil of Darkness, time when to bring models back into a unit, doing all that is going to be like pretty key. So I think what's nice about it feels like a real skill book, and I think that's actually a really good place for the book to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Dick, got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think your thoughts were very well articulated. I think this is going to sound a bit dark, but I think that a lot of the people who picked up this army the past few weeks will drop it very quickly because it is not going to be the big ace in the hole which will dominate the tournament scene. But I think it will be a deep book which will bring new builds for the coming years.
Okay.
And I think that the list I'll be using is going to be radically different to what Nichols is using. And
radically different to what I'm going to be testing as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be great.
If I had the money, I'd buy a ton of spiders tomorrow, the Canoptic spiders, and I'd start like building my list around that because I just think that they're baller. And like model wise, like I didn't even talk about Tomb Blades, which I thought pretty fucking great as well. So I think you're right. I think what's nice about it is there doesn't seem like a jump off. I think that's also the strength of 9th edition in some ways, and why I struggled reading through the book a bit is because absolutely everything really has an option in some cases. I think actually one of the worst parts about 9th edition is committing too heavily into a single big thing. You know, like knowing especially things like eradicators are out there and stuff, knowing that like you put a vehicle down, someone can just take it off. Actually, it comes down to those mid-tier units running around the board that are going to start controlling board space and winning you games actually feel pretty important, which I think is cool. I think it's actually really good. Yeah, all right, good. All right, everyone happy with that? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think the 6 inches extra move at the start of the first battle round is like insane, especially when combining it with the ObSec. So I'm just going to be doing that and her doing it at the center and standing there.
Same.
Yeah, skill book, by the way. Yeah.
Also same. But I'll be doing it with spiders. You'll be doing it with Wraiths.
Dick will spiders and Wraiths. Thank you.
I'll be doing it with Scarabs.
And then Nick's doing it with Warriors. You're not doing it, Nick.
No. I'm not.
I have been looking into
back, guys. Come on.
I have been looking into the ObSec with extra 3-inch range on guns because 15-inch range on those new Gauss Reapers. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Plus you also move 6 because you actually move 5+1, don't you? So it's actually like
yeah.
Yeah. And then you just push.
The reason why I won't be doing the 6-inch move thing because I'm actually going to be going for the Nihilic Dynasty because you get that sweet item for the Kaku command barge, which makes him awesome. Yeah. And also their stratagem is you can shoot and do an action in the same time. So when you get your warriors So if you're sitting your warrior blob on an objective or in the middle, you can either do deploy scramblers or raise banners and also shoot at the same time, which is quite cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also a protocol to do that. So.
Wow. It's going to spoil my plan like that, ain't you?
All right, well, sweet. It's been a pleasure talking to everyone. Dick, thanks very much for coming on, being a special guest on the show.
Yeah, I had a great time, guys. Thank you.
Dick.
Nick, thanks so much for doing all the homework and making everything look really sweet. Appreciate that tons.
Thank you.
Tom, thanks for reading at least a third of the book.
You're welcome. I read that third of the book very well.
I'm excited to know what your thoughts are on... do you think we're doing this again? Because we're not. So we've missed 2/3 of what you think now, which is sad.
No. So the other 2/3 I asked other people about, and they don't give me the answers, and then I repeated them on the stream.
All right, perfect. All right,
yeah.
Okay. Wraiths is
Wraiths.
I'm against wraiths because of the bases, and I need you to know that forever because they're too small and they fall over all the time. I can't handle that.
Maybe now we can stop using Realm of Battles and just use mats. And we'll be fine.
The new box comes with 50 millimeter bases.
Okay, so a bit more stable. So everyone's going to have to rebase them.
Rebase them, and hopefully they'll stay upright.
Yes, that's my favorite. Is when people have to just randomly rebase models for no reason.
I mean, I hate it, but I also love it in this case.
Yeah. Someone's going to be at a tournament they're going to be on 40s and be like, "Oh, what?" Like they've completely missed the memo. All right, everyone. Well, it's been a pleasure. If you've been watching live, thank you very much for watching us live. It's been sweet. If you've enjoyed this, thank you. Obviously, you can support us on Patreon. And if you ever wanted to, you can listen to this as a podcast, which is super nice. Dick, you'll have to, if you want to get in touch with Dick, we can include some sort of link in the show notes if you want. So you want to talk Necrons?
OnlyFans link. Yep.
Is there like a Necron chat that you're in?
No, but you can add me on Twitter and talk Necrons with me there. Or buy a ticket to any of the Alliance Open tournaments and come with your Necrons.
In 2022 or whenever they're open again?
2023 maybe.
I can't wait to play 40. I can't play
organizing smaller events, so maybe that will work.
We'll see. That's good. Yeah, I'm excited for 40k 10th edition when we can actually play. 9th edition is just going to be one theory.
Okay. So, 10th edition will just be 9th edition, but yeah. It'll be the same as 9th edition, but with just new books that we've got to buy and codexes that we've got to buy for no reason.
None of us are really buying them. All right, well, thank you everyone in the Twitch chat. You look after yourselves, stay healthy and stay hydrated.